It is Friday night. It is UHL Conference Championships, and I could not be more excited. I am Wicked Good. I am here with UHL Season 1 champion, Coin Concede's own Ridiculous Hat. I don't know if I'm more excited that this match is about to happen or that we're actually getting to cast a match together.
Porque no los dos?
That's I don't
Spanish for why not both?
I don't speak any language other than Hearthstone.
Why not both? We can be excited about both. I mean, this is a pretty amazing match, and I think Red Knight pointed out in the casting of the match where I got trounced by Mike Lowe that all 4 players in the top 4 are new to Season 2. So it seems like we really recruited a strong batch of players that are looking to prove something.
Yep, and these 2 players in particular are really looking to prove something because both of them nearly missed the playoffs towards the end of the season. Red Knight getting matched up against Karakute from Team Toast, who is playing in Hearthstone Global Games, so she's a pretty good player. And he just kind of had that bad luck of the end of the season schedule, and then O'Leary having some matches where she said that she was unhappy with her play, and then really turned it around last week in week 1 of the playoffs against Stormrage, and looking to make a statement in the playoffs. So we have 2 players with very interesting lineups. Again, the format, if you're new to UHL, the format is that normally during the regular season, each player brings 3 classes, and then they cannot use those again until all 9 classes have been played over 3 weeks. In the playoffs, it works a little bit differently in that each player takes turns drafting a class until all 9 classes have been drafted, and whichever is the last kid left on the playground has to be played by both players. So the classes as we have them right now are O'Leary has Hunter, Shaman, Warrior, Paladin, and Warlock, and Red Knight has Mage, Paladin, Priest, Rogue, and Druid. So, obviously you won the league last year. You know this process pretty well. How do you approach a draft like this? Because this is a fairly unique format, best of 9, with no bans.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting format, and I think one of the key hallmarks of what makes UHL so interesting to watch in the playoffs, this is not the sort of thing that you see in the HCT, and the requirement of every class being represented leads to some strange lineups. And it's interesting, the decision here, I think, lines up with usually how I make the draft. The deck that both players have is Paladin.
Yeah.
And while Odd Paladin is extremely strong in this meta, it's also very linear in the choices available to you as a player. It's Odd Paladin, sometimes even Paladin, but usually not. And that's it.
You have a Murloc Paladin, maybe, if you're feeling really spicy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. I mean, it's Odd Paladin or bust, basically. And on the one hand, I would think that would be a strong lineup in a best of 9 with no ban, where you could at least get it to line up against something. On the other hand, it's, you run into Druid and you get a Spreading Plague and you're done. So I can understand not wanting to take that. So both players needing to get a win and it looks like both players have brought Odd Paladin.
And it used to be the case where Spreading Plague was an absolute roadblock, but can you think of any card, Mr. Steve, Mr. Wicked Good, that you may have evaluated as a possible answer to Spreading Plague that's starting to see more play?
Oh, you mean everyone's favorite little demon, Void Ripper? The little demon who could? Yeah.
The very same.
Yeah, that's been a tech that's gotten into the Odd Paladin list, and it looks like that is the difference between the 2 players' Odd Paladins. O'Leary choosing to bring Odd Paladin, a Spell Hunter, a Shutterwalk Shaman, a even Warlock, and what looks like Frozen's Big Warrior. So kind of a heavier lineup. Shutterwalk Shaman was a bit of a stumbling block for her in week 6 of the regular season against Andrew's Living. Had a bit of a trouble piling the deck, but I'm sure that she's learned from that experience and has brought a more of a recent deck. I think that deck that she brought was like Disguised Host's day 1 deck that everyone was complaining about at the time. So the Odd Paladin not featuring the Void Rippers, instead going with the more traditional build of Stormwind Champion, Stonehill defenders and raid leaders with 1 Ironbeak Owl to try to get through a big taunt. And then the Spell Hunter being something that she's gone to a couple of times and has been able to pilot very well in previous weeks. And then the Even Warlock looks like a fairly standard build. Nothing, no gastropods or anything too spicy in it. But Even Warlock generally being, having decent matchups across the board seems like a reasonable pick. And then this Frozen's Recruit Warrior is very, very interesting. It's a very control-heavy lineup. Runs a whole bunch of 8-drops with stars next to their names. Geosculptor Yip, Grom, Rotface, Scourgelord Garrosh, the Lich King, and Ysera, and then relies on Gather Your Party and Willcleaver to pull those out of the deck. And I'm looking forward to seeing this played just because I love me some Rotface. And I love seeing what comes out of that. What comes out of it, it can make for some very interesting board states.
Yeah, it's a Larry, as an artifact of her Week 3 DQ win against Breezy, she actually has only played Shaman 2 games in the entire time she's been in UHL in the regular season, and she lost both of them. Now, I believe she has a win with the class in playoff play from last week, but Shutterwalk just hasn't really been all that good to her, and you were there when you observed the match against Andrew, and it didn't go as planned. So I'm sure she's practiced and gotten a little bit better at it. And I'm sure that Red Knight wasn't expecting it. Now, at the same time, when you look at his lineup, right, Odd Paladin is there, but you've got the double Void Rippers. He's got an interesting selection of decks that we were talking about it earlier. It looks more like an LHS lineup because we've got an interesting split of aggressive and controlling. We've got Mally Druid and Big Spell Mage, which are definitely more on the slower side. And Mally Druid is kind of a combo control. It doesn't have controlling elements, just it's defensive until it's offensive.
Right.
But you've got your Spreading Plagues, you've got your Branching Paths, and all this removal and Ferocious Howl, so we can definitely put it in the control class. And Big Spell Mage is just wipe the board, and make a bunch of 5/5 dragons. And there's also a Mind Blast Priest that he's titled only this format. And looking at this list, boy, I agree. You don't say UHL any better than you say 1x Night Scale Matriarch.
Yeah, I feel like we saw that in a DreamHack, maybe? Like, that's not the first time I've seen Night Scale Matriarch in a Mind Blast Priest. Or maybe it was
in
a combo priest.
priest.
Yeah, okay, it was a combo priest. Not so much in a Mind Blast Priest, but it makes sense with the extra dragon to make sure that you get your Dustbreaker off again. If you're looking at Illyri to bring a more aggressive lineup, and we were talking before the cast that it might make sense for her to bring Even Shaman, because Even Shaman has become more of a powerful deck, and if she was not feeling comfortable with Shutterwalk Shaman, then that would be a reasonable pick. But and against that, being able to Dustbreaker and Even Shaman is pretty powerful. Against a Shutterwalk Shaman, it becomes down to a race of who gets whose Death Knight first, basically. But a Nightscale Matriarch could end up just being a big butt on the board that can help push some damage in the meantime.
And you know what we say about big butts. We have to be honest about them. It's very important.
Well, we do love them, and we do not lie.
The only outlier here is that Red Knight's last deck is not Miracle Rogue, it is Odd Rogue, despite his love of Miracle Rogue, and perhaps it was a cautionary tale when he saw me get Pyroblasted last week of maybe play something just a little bit faster and a little bit better against the decks that Illyri is likely to bring. It's good against the Shaman, it's good against the Warlock, and it's probably about even with Odd Paladin. I think there's a lot of opportunity here for this Odd Rogue to perform, but it is definitely the deck that stands out as the most aggressive in a bunch of slower and mid-rangier and control decks. So I'm curious to see how it performs, but let's not keep the players waiting. What do you say we jump in there and see for ourselves?
I think let's do that. So why don't you give the players the signal to go ahead and, I mean, I guess, I know Conquest is basically just, you could roll a die and figure it out, but I mean, if you're trying to queue particular decks, do you try to get this Odd Paladin out of the way first?
Typically, I will start with the deck that has the most even matchup spread. I was kind of expecting Red Knight to bring the Druid first, but it looks like he's queuing in with the Priest first.
Yeah.
Might be an indicator that he thinks it's the weakest, and Illyri is not wasting any time. She's starting with Shutterwalk Shaman, and she made the good play of starting with Prince Keliseth in her hand, so it's clear that she's been practicing.
Yep, you play Shutterwalk Shaman enough, the Prince finds you. Someday your Prince will come. And he has starting off, gets rid of everything but the Prince Keliseth, ends up with a Lightning Storm and a Chain Gang in her opening hand, and Red Knight opening up with a Cleric, which seeing immediately that it's not even Shaman. I'm not sure what his thought is in this. Kaliseth into the Cleric, no fear of allowing Red Knight to draw cards, and there is a second Dustbreaker along with a whole hand of dragons for Red Knight.
Now this is a fascinating play here. Red Knight with the turn 1 Cleric on the coin facing down to Kaliseth. It is not the typical attack and heal. This was a turn 2 Shadow Visions and go face for 1, so he's bypassing the heal. He clearly wanted to look for something with the Shadow Visions, but a little bit of a punish here by not trading into the Kaliseth, and then Aleri is Zola-ing that Kaliseth. So there's a double Prince situation, and this Northshire Cleric can just be traded into now. I wonder if that was... I wonder what the thought was there, what Red Knight was looking for. He's got the Dustbreakers, he can clear the board early, but Shudderwock is one of those control decks that just floods the board with, well, less than optimal, but consistent and significant minions, especially Mana Tides and Acolytes that draw a lot of cards.
Yeah, and I guess if I'm the Priest player in this matchup, I guess I'm thinking, like, I want as much burn as I possibly can get, because I have a limited amount of time, and this is just a race. It's a race to assemble all of his damage as a Mind Blast Priest, versus the Shudderwock getting their combo together, and the Priest should be able to go faster, but having extra pieces of burn as an insurance policy will help with that, especially with a handful of dragons that really aren't doing anything, and Dustbreakers are not, I mean, they're not bad, they clear out chain gangs, but they're not really what you want against the Shudderwock Shaman. You really want pressure and burn, so Kaliseth number 2 coming down, and then a Hero Power putting out a Searing Totem, and it looks like this Cleric is going to get traded off.
And I really like this play from Aleri of, by playing double Kaliseth, her mediocre Shaman minions become much bigger Shaman minions. And by not playing the Serenite Chain Gang, she is not overextending into an obvious Dustbreaker setup.
Yep.
There was the expectation from Red Knight, this Cleric is not going to survive, otherwise that turn 2 Shadow Visions doesn't make sense. So setting up to not overextend into a Dustbreaker, I think, is a heads-up read from Aleri. It's clear she's been practicing this deck.
And you do see Red Knight play the Twilight Drake over the Dustbreaker, looking to try to clear out this Chain Gang. I would expect that this Dustbreaker is probably going to come out this turn to be able, taking 5 damage in the process, but also clearing out the Chain Gang, which, going into turn 6 with the Grumble, we can see the Grumble in hand for Aleri does not want to allow extra Chain Gang activations to be able to make that Shudderwock better. And you can see the Shudderwock in hand for Aleri as well. She can Volcano this board if she wants to. It seems like really the only play, aside from maybe Hero Power Pass, because double Lightning Storm is going to pretty much lock out her next turn. She can just Grumble on an empty board. It's reasonable given that she has a Shudderwock in play.
Yeah, I would 100% Grumble on the empty board here just as development. You're not under a ton of pressure here as the Shudderwock player, and I think there's a possibility of opening up the board for a little bit more pressure and just start getting those combo pieces into the Battlecry pool. I could see the double Lightning Storm, but you're not going to kill that Twilight Drake unless you get the 25% roll, and I wouldn't want to overload for 4 in the following turn, and Volcano's not going to get a ton of value. I actually kind of like this play. Aleri is just going to Volcano away the board and keep her life total higher because she hasn't seen the Healing Rain. But Red Knight has the combo card in hand, the 1-card combo of Alexstrasza. That's got to be so impactful in this matchup.
Well, not just Alexstrasza, but Alexstrasza and the Death Knight right before it too. So he has all of his setup. He's just missing Mind Blast at this point. And the Mind Control tech's going to come down along with just a Hero Power, opening up the possibility to be able to play the Grumble next turn once the Overload clears. Red Knight's going to play out this Nightscale Matriarch, and I mean it's a perfectly reasonable play. He doesn't necessarily need to coin anything out right now. Challenges the minions on board. Leary's looks like she's looking at that Hagatha.
And I think it's worth noting that Aleri's hand is very poor in this situation.
Yeah.
She is desperate for card draw, and the hand is double Lightning Storm, Volcano, Grumble, Shudderwock, Hagatha. There's nothing going on there that's going to even get her close to the later game. She's still the Life Drinker and playing the Grumble short of even starting to assemble the combo, though she does have the Zola down. So there are a couple battle cries in the pool that are relevant, but time is not on her side with the makeup of Red Knight's hand, and Hagatha is a liability in any kind of control matchup because your hand fills up so quickly, and you can't guarantee the Shudderwock combo.
Yeah, not only do you not guarantee the Shutterwalk combo, but can actually clear itself if you're not careful. Because those 3 damage swings happen and can make the 6/6s easier to clear, which, you know, you do have the Death Knight to clear them, but that's other than that and a Psychic Scream, which you don't super mind. There's not a lot of ways for Red Knight to clear a board full of 6/6s. And if there's 6/3s, then he can just Dustbreaker them.
Yes. And Red Knight going for not playing one of the combo cards, not playing Anduin and setting up for the fast Alexstrasza. Instead, we get Northshire Cleric, heal the Nightscale Matriarch, and then coin out the Holy Fire due to hand size issues. Now, coining out the Holy Fire before the Alexstrasza, I don't love that sequencing. And I think I would have rather seen an investment in Plan A here of just saying, I'm going to burn you out.
Yeah.
But instead, Illyri's going to be able to capitalize on this at 21 life instead of 26, and goes Giant Acolyte of Pain, which is a 3/5 now, and then the second Volcano.
That is a lot of cards. I mean,
and that's exactly what she was looking for.
And we were just saying like a second ago she was looking for card draw, and she found it in spades. But the problem is now she kind of has too much of a good thing, because her hand's starting to fill up and she can't really clear it out. I actually would like to see her play the
high roll
shot.
and the Totemic Might, which is the first time that sentence has ever been said. She had 10 cards in her hand, but she got the only 0-mana spell that would have worked. I guess she could have zapped her own minion.
Yeah.
But she got the Totemic Might. It could have been that, Ancestral Healing, or Zap.
But
and she managed to play it out.
But we're saying that she could have avoided that entirely by just Frost Shocking Red Knight's face.
Yes, but this is more fun.
I don't disagree. So now, with a full hand and only 8 mana because of the overload, Illyria has a lot of choices, and she's going to draw with the Farsight, gets another free Glacial Shard, which is the lowest roll you can get in this deck with the Farsight, and just trying to figure out how she can make some room in her hand right now so that she can Shutterwalk next turn. And
we're likely going to have to see a Lightning Storm and an empty board.
Yeah,
there is an Ice Fishing there that is unlikely to draw any minions.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's what she wants. That's basically the Totemic Might from the last turn, that she can just play that to dump some cards out of her hand. Again, she does have the Frost Shock available to her too, but she's really trying to find one of those Life Drinkers out of her deck so that she can hopefully start to do some damage with the Shutterwalk instead of just creating a giant board. But this Mana Tide is going to create more trouble than it solves, and the Ice Fishing at least will get one card out of hand, but Illyria is guaranteed to burn a card on the next draw. Finds a Healing Rain, which will be helpful, because here comes Alexstrasza.
Yeah, I do think that Red Knight is going to get punished here for the sequencing of playing the burn spell before the Alexstrasza, because the Holy Fire basically didn't exist this game, except as heal 5 to his own face.
Yeah.
But I do not like this Mana Tide from Illyria. There's a lot of really major hand size issues here, and there are still some major combo pieces left in the deck. Milling a Life Drinker here would be near catastrophic.
Yeah.
And she could have prevented that full... the full hand issue by playing double 1-mana spell or just not playing the Mana Tide at all.
Yeah. So we'll be able to deal with this turn fairly cleanly. Hex and Healing Rain, I would assume, are both coming out, which will solve both the Alexstrasza issue, the health issue, and the hand size issue to some extent. She could even use the Frost Shock on the Frog if she wants to push some more damage. Looks like she's going to trade that off.
And interestingly enough, a Healing Rain is burned from the deck, but a Healing Rain was also generated from Hagatha, so that basically evens out, right? That's how that works?
You know, RNG giveth and RNG taketh away. So, Red Knight has the follow-up to the Alexstrasza, but unfortunately not the life total on Illyri's side to be able to take advantage of those 2 Mind Blasts and the Anduin Hero Power. But he does have a Psychic Scream that he can use to clear up this board and put some more junk back into the deck, gets Illyri further away from the Life Drinkers, except that one comes into the hand and gets played out almost immediately. And then the Grumble on top of it will bring the Life Drinker back before the spell gets generated, so she will still have that in her hand. And at this point, I don't think she cares if she mills anything else, because she has everything she needs.
The only possibility here is what could happen if Shutterwalk fails to go off, but also it's important to recognize if your hand is full except for one slot, and you've played both Grumble and Zola. If the Zola goes off first, your combo immediately stops.
Yeah.
You get a 9-mana Shudderwock back instead of a 1-mana one. And the issue here is that Illyria's hand is full of so much junk that she doesn't really have a place to put without overloading, that it's going to take her another couple of turns to really set up for this to work.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, Red Knight is in the unenviable position of having to use burn spells on minions against a Shudderwock Shaman.
Yep.
And that's not really where you want to be.
It is not. And I guess we're going to see how much experience Illyria really does have with this deck now, being able to recognize the situation, because this is the where this deck gets very tricky when you have a Hagatha out. She really needs to take a turn and just blow some of these spells that are not healing rains out of her hand. But overloading is going to put her another turn away from being able to Shudderwock in the first place. So that Lightning Storm just added one turn to Red Knight's clock, effectively.
It did, but it also didn't eliminate the clock entirely, which is definitely a win. And Illyria did emote unwise as she Lightning Stormed the empty board. I don't know if that meant I don't like that I have to do this because my hand is so full, or I clicked that by accident.
Yeah.
But still, I'm not quite sure that she recognizes how important that the hand emptying is here, because Sandbinder is, again, the opposite of what you want to do here. Drawing a minion is not going to get you any closer to the combo, which involves, at this point, the only resource missing is an empty hand.
Yeah. Though it's possible that she thought that was safe to do and forgot that they got Psychic Scream back into her deck, too. That's also a possibility.
Yes, that's reasonable. It doesn't come up all that often.
Yeah. You don't see Priest very much to my dismay.
And much to my abject pleasure.
Yeah, so Illyria does have a lot of cards with a 1 in the corner. And I think she's kind of at a point where she may need to just use all of them. Even the Wind Fury on the 4/3 would be pretty good, just to push a little bit more damage and get something out of her hand. But it seems like she's got a Lightning Bolt, 2 Lightning Bolts. She really only can play one of them, but she's got a Wind Fury. She's got Unstable Evolution she can use. I think that she just needs to get all of these cheap cards, cheap spells particularly, out of her hand without overloading herself so that she can get this Shudderwock down.
Yeah, she's still set up for success with the second Healing Rain. At this point, it is just a question of step 1, empty hand, step 2, empty opponent's life total. As long as that is happening, then we're good.
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, I mean, she is in the driver's seat, and the Hex and Healing Rain following up the Alexstrasza has made it very, very difficult for Red Knight to win this game, which is also why you really don't see Mind Blast Priest on ladder very much, because this matchup and also the Druid matchup are generally pretty miserable as the Mind Blast Priest, where you have to do a set amount of damage.
That makes sense. Yeah, and the second Healing Rain here, it takes a while for Priest to get set up, and Illyria, it's important to note, she recognized early on the plan of I need to double Keleseth to make my minions a dual threat is also very relevant.
Yeah, and that's looming large right now. It looks like Red Knight is going to use these Mind Blasts to proc twice on the Wild Pyromancer to clear this board. That is going to give Illyria a chance to just heal herself back up, should she so choose, and I would imagine that is going to be highest on her priority list, especially because she can't Shudderwock again this turn because of the overload. And another Chain Gang into the hand is going to make this a little bit more inevitable.
Well, not only a little bit more inevitable, these are threats by themselves.
That's
2
true.
4/5s. Red Knight doesn't really have a good answer to them right now. He can attack into one and go Primordial Drake and ping the other one.
Well, he's got a Holy Fire, so he can clear one with the Holy Fire and ping trade the other one.
But then you're just talking about removing win conditions from the deck, because those spells need to go face.
They do.
We've already had an opponent. Illyria has healed 24 points of health this game. It still has quite a few minions that can generate another Healing Rain.
Yeah.
So this is looking a little dicey.
Yeah, it looks like Red Knight's trying to find any reason to not use this Holy Fire on a 4/5, and he's not going to find one in his deck. And does clear the board successfully, but it looks like it's time to walk.
Let's see if we can walk this way. Okay, we have a copy.
There we go. We're going to walk and roll all night.
Yep, we're not fizzling, and it does look like that Shudderwock did, in fact, get grumbled back to the hand.
Yes.
So if nothing else, we're not going to be over. And Red Knight sees the writing on the wall and calls it immediately.
Yeah. So Illyri pulling the Band-Aid off with the Shutterwalk Shaman and getting the win right away. So that is going to be 1-up for Illyri, a 1-0 score going into Game 2. And before we get into Game 2, we're going to take a second to just remind you that you can also contribute to the Patreon. Season 3 preparation is just getting started right now. Presumably we'll be starting after the new expansion, which we should be hearing about next week. So probably about a month from now, if the schedule is, if the schedule for the expansion and the schedule for the league line up the way that they have, we should be starting season 3 about a month and a half from now. And you can be part of that by contributing to the Patreon at patreon.com/UnitedHSLeague. That is where we use for some of the expenses, some of the pack giveaways from the pick'ems, some of the equipment that, some of the casters use, potentially to improve some of the stream quality or have more people available to stream the matches to you. A lot of this comes together from the goodwill of the community and from the community coming together to make this a great league as much as it is. But some of it also does come from your support. And by contributing to the Patreon, you can also get yourself access to an exclusive channel within the Discord with access to the players and the casters. And you can also get yourself, if you are the top contributor, and I believe that Runny said is still our top patron, you can get yourself a shout out in every match when you are the top patron. So thank you to everyone who has contributed, and please do contribute today. We enjoy doing this, and there are expenses, and we want to make sure that we can make UHL even better in season 3 than it was in season 2. We want to take the jump from season 1 to season 2 and do the same thing from season 2 to season 3.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty incredible to see the growth in the league, not only doubling in size in players, but more than tripling in the back end. The amount of energy and effort that's gone into bringing this league from an idea to a reality has been nothing short of truly amazing. We really appreciate all the hard work from all the creators out there. Nate Wolf for the graphics, Steve Wickegood here for his casting, cat herding, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah.
And of course the dynamic duo of Cinder and Brasky, all of Team Swagoy, all of our casters. We've had some really great players stepping in as well, just to help us lighten the load a little bit. It's been really nice to see the community come together.
Yeah.
Now our players are telling me that they are ready for Game 2, so we're ready if you're ready, Steve.
Okay, well, we just want to make sure to point out before, first of all, that it's patreon.com/UnitedHSLeague for the Patreon. And also, we have one more match so that we can bring you the rest of this match uninterrupted. We are going to tell you we have a second match tomorrow, which is Nate Wolf versus Mike Lowe, and that is at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on this channel, with the dynamic duo of Cinder Ascendant and Brasky casting, which should be fun to watch as well as to listen to. So that's it. We've talked enough. Let's let the players get back into it, and let's see where we go from here. So again, Illyri with the Shaman conquered. Now has the Even Warlock, the Paladin, the Big Warrior, and the Hunter left. Meanwhile, Red Knight has all 5 of his decks left available. And it looks like we are going to get the Big Spell Mage into the Big Warrior. So get your butt in the seat. We may be here for a little while.
And this is what happens when... So you know the expression, what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? What happened when 2 immovable objects just kind of look at each other?
Well, one of those immovable objects has Frostless Jaina in the opening hand, so that's a pretty good way to start out.
And that is a snap keep from Red Knight.
Oh, yeah.
It could not have been a faster keep. Everything else goes away, but Jaina, she's here.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like, I would... If I'm him, I'm putting her on Taunt Warrior, because that's... I mean, Frozen's Big Warrior kind of came out in the last, like, day or so, maybe? But realistically, like, the deck in the meta is Taunt Warrior. So he's going to be very confused when he comes out and does not see the quest come out on her first turn. And that will probably be raising some eyebrows on his side, because... and he may still think that it's Taunt Warrior, and she may have thrown away the quest, even. Which is also a possibility.
So... Here's the thing about this deck is that the big warrior is still fairly threat light. And in terms of threats, we've got, not counting Woe Cleaver as a threat because it's 8 mana, deal 9 damage, Ysera, Lich King, Rotface, Grom, Geosculptor, Yip. Those are the only threats in the entire deck. Meanwhile, Red Knight is going to have at least 2 Meteors, at least 2 Polymorphs. Definitely got the Doomsayer Blizzard situation going on. There's a lot of removal here that should be able to line up pretty well with Alari's threats. Now, what she has instead is Dead Man's Hand,
right? Which
means that if we go Fatigue, she's probably going to win, at least in terms of outlasting the life total. But interestingly, she shield blocks on turn 3. So she's already drawing some cards, and there is only one Dead Man's Hand. This is not an infinite combo.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the what you have to think about, and I've never played this deck enough to know which way you go with this, but the other things you could be thinking is, well, I've got Dead Man's Hand now. I could double the number of threats before I start recruiting them. And, you know, if you have 2 Yseras, that's better than 1 Ysera. So
I ran the numbers, and it's about twice as good.
2 is greater than 1. That's a that's science.
Except when you're the Spice Girls and then 2 become 1.
Well, you know, we don't... This is not Spice World. This is Hearthstone.
Ain't that a shame?
I know.
So anyways...
Anyway, back
to talk about not the Spice Girls for some reason, I would like to point out here that Alari's deck is a lot of card draw. Way more than Red Knight's deck is, because Big Spell Mage doesn't actually draw that many cards. It's usually meant on gaining value through the board clear, taking care of multiple threats, where you've got Forge of Souls. Keep in mind that every recruit mechanic does pull a card out of the deck. If Alari keeps drawing cards, if that's the thing she decides to do over time, she will fatigue even with the Dead Man's Hand.
Yeah.
Because she's only going to get a maximum of 9 additional cards in the deck with it.
Yeah, though, I mean, Red Knight is running Novice Engineer in his list. He does have some card draw, I think, if I remember correctly. He has a little bit more... Well, I guess he's running the Novice Engineer instead of the normal double Witchwood Piper. So he actually has less card draw than most big spell mages. He is opting to go for Dragon Call or Alana at the top end, which is kind of fallen out of the list at this point.
Yeah, there's no Cindergosa here, which we started to see a little bit more. There is a Skulking Geist, which I think will be pretty relevant here if Alari does not find a home for these Shield Slams. But it is important to note that without the Cindergosa here, it's going to be really dependent on Frostless Jaina. There is Baron Geddon as a weird Elemental Reno. There is a small card draw package in Red Knight's list as well. He's got 1 Novice Engineer, 2 Raven Familiars, and 1 Acolyte of Pain, which I assume is never, ever getting played ever for any reason.
Yeah, though, and the Skulking Geist could actually be even more relevant because this list runs Ironhide from Alari too, so that's 10 damage effectively that Skulking Geist is doing.
Yeah, I think that if Alari spends all the armor gain and uses it all effectively, doesn't draw cards, and Dead Man's Hand for a full hand, then I think there's a really good opportunity here for her to take this match. Now, there's also an opportunity. I don't know how good this is going to be because of the double Meteor Polymorph in hand, but I do like attacking face for 10. That's a pretty pleasant thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's still 10 damage prior to Frostless Jaina coming down, so it's going to get answered. But and Red Knight can take his choice of how he wants to deal with it, but that's still a third of his life total gone. And, you know, if she can do that a couple of more times, and we can see the Woe Cleaver in hand for next turn, I guess the only question is, was that better than just waiting one more turn and then coining out the Woe Cleaver?
You mean the Woe Cleaver?
The Woe Cleaver. My bad. I'm sorry. I have to get my my pronunciation right.
Yeah, and honestly, either you're recruiting or you're not. And if you are recruiting, I think a faster threat is going to be better than a slower threat every time.
Yeah.
There's the opportunity to generate cards there. There was the opportunity. There's a lot of things that could have happened that were really good for Alari. And 10 damage? I like 10 damage. Big
10
fan.
10 damage is pretty good.
If it were a magazine, I'd resubscribe every month to 10 damage. But it's if you're going to be on the recruit plan, which I have questions about, what you're doing is saying, hey, Red Knight, do you have the removal now? If you don't recruit now, you're saying, do you have the removal eventually? The answer is yes. Maybe. But if you go with your plan, Steve, of saying 1 threat at a time after I Dead Man's Hand and double them, is the pressure enough to beat the removal? And I don't know that question. I think that the answer is probably yes, but maybe not in enough time. compared to the Frostlich Jaina situation, because Polymorph and Frostlich Jaina are well matched, and I wonder if Red Knight would have been better suited by using the Meteor to kill the Grom instead of the Polymorph to hold it for after Jaina comes down next turn.
Yeah, because he is going to want as many Flame Elementals as he can get. So Illyri choosing to clear this Doomsayer, but I'm not sure what's coming down behind it. I might have liked to see her just equip the Woe Cleaver and not attack. It leaves you open to a Gluttonous Ooze, but that's 1 to 30 in the deck. And
the slam that she used on this Doomsayer is card draw. Now I don't know if she's playing around Skulking Geist. Oh, we got a Dead Man's Hand.
Well, so that means that we're gonna get 2 Geosculptor Yips, which I am completely on board with. I want as many Geosculptor Yips and Rot Faces as we can see in this match. Like, bring on the Rot Face. Daddy will make plenty of toys.
And there's also 2 Yseras involved.
Yeah.
And we discussed the math on that earlier, so I won't rehash it. But it's important to note that a second Ysera means more threats are coming.
It also means more burst damage, because you can generate more Nightmares and more Ysera Awakens. So that's going to be the way that Illyri's going to have to beat Red Knight with this deck, is just going to have to burst him down from a high total all at once, and multiple Yseras can let her piece that together.
Now, how aggressively do you think that she should be playing around Skulking Geist here? She's got the 2 Shield Slams in hand. We know she's got the Iron Hides in the deck. Is there any point where she should use these Shield Slams before she loses them, or do you think she knows that Red Knight does not have Geist because of how the game has progressed so far?
I mean, I'd want to use one anyway because it lets you play one of your 8-mana cards. Like, forget the Geist. Just get rid of this 3/6, put something down, let's go.
Well, you can't do that. There's only 5 armor, so you have to make a choice.
Oh, well,
5 armor. Do you leave up a 3/1? Do you leave up a 3/1 Frost Elemental, or do you drop Ysera with? And again, this looks like a full hand.
Okay,
it does soak up the exclusive runes.
That's a good read from Illyri. I mean, that could have been Mirror Entity, which would have been pretty disastrous.
And she's also going to burn a card. She's got 10 cards in hand, so I don't know what's going to go away. But I hope we don't lose a Lich King or something.
Yeah. So this Polymorph, I can't. I mean, it's going to be either a Voodoo Doll or a Polymorph that's going to deal with this, presumably. It doesn't really matter which.
And it remained interesting to me that the Polymorphs are being used first when there's so many other removal options here. I don't mind filling the board with 3/6s. And Illyri burns a Forge of Souls, which is probably the best card in her deck to burn because it's not good here.
She's already got a Woe Cleaver in hand. She doesn't a Woe Cleaver. Sorry, she doesn't.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Second one.
And Red Knight playing out the 1/3 here. There's an opportunity for Warpath to make a big dent in that fatigue discrepancy. The question is, does Illyri want to use it? She's going to take damage afterwards, but she can bring both of these 3/6s down to 3/1s and burn a card of Red Knights while finding use for this Warpath and finding use for her turn. If she equips the Woe Cleaver, she can't attack with it this turn. It'll stick around, but it's an investment of 8 mana for nothing right now. Still, we don't know the next time she's going to be able to attack.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I kind of liked putting the Woe Cleaver out on the Doomsayer turn, because at least you knew you were going to be able to get one attack with it. As soon as these Frost Elementals come out uncontested, this is a problem that you get into. You need to be able to attack the Woe Cleaver, and the Frost Elemental or the Water Elementals do not allow that to happen. But going to use the Reckless Flurry and the Warpath to clear these out. Reckless Flurry is reasonable in this spot, not losing too much armor in the process, still at 29. And ultimately, I don't think that Illyri's life total is not going to be relevant until it really, really is in this matchup. But there comes the Skulking Geist.
And it looks as though both players have kind of adopted the plan of this is not going to be a fatigue matchup. They're both drawing cards, and they're both pretty clearly invested in fighting for board more than they are in fighting for deck as a resource. But the Skulking Geist, it eats, that was 5 cards. 4 cards out of Illyri's deck. There were both of the Dead Man's Handed
6
Shield Slams.
It was 6. It ate 4 Shield Slams and 2 Ironhides.
Yeah, 2 Shield Slams in the hand and 2 in the deck and 2 Ironhides in the deck. So 4 cards closer to fatigue. And then also we have we have 2 cards out of the hand, so it solves Illyri's hand size issues, but at what cost?
Yeah, well, we're going to use one of these Warpaths right now.
The darkness!
Oh, no!
It's literally the worst possible.
Yeah. You cannot summon a card, because The Darkness, if you've never seen this card before, which is possible, it shuffles 3 candles in your opponent's deck. It doesn't come to life until they get drawn. There are no candles shuffled into Red Knight's deck, so that is basically just taking up space on Illyri's board for the rest of the game.
Wow.
Yeah.
The actual lowest roll possible.
Yeah.
And this is starting to look like Red Knight is in a really strong position here. He's now only 1 card behind Fatigue. The Rot Face was worse than useless. There's just a slot on the board that's been deleted. And the cheap removal options that Red Knight has are all spawning water elementals, which are very, very good against a weapon-based deck.
Yeah.
We might see a Blizzard Doomsayer come soon, or we might not need to with the double Meteor in hand and the constant pressure.
Yeah, I mean, the good news for Illyria, she can attack this turn, so she can at least get something out on the board. Looks like she's going to try to play this Geosculptor Yip, but is... that's going to give Red Knight 2, and that actually could be relevant because Red Knight does have Arcane Artificers in the deck.
Yep.
So he can build up.
Oh my god! Doomsayer summoned... Geosculptor Yip summoned a Doomsayer.
Like, I don't know who Illyri angered at Blizzard today, but...
My goodness.
Wow, those are some awful, awful rolls off those minions. I mean, I guess there is something to be said for not playing, or did that came out of the Woe? No, it came. The Lich King came out of the Woe Cleaver, right? She played the Geosculptor.
Yes.
Yep. There might have been something to be said for not. I mean, she didn't have a whole lot of great options, but do you ever Army of the Dead next turn if you're Illyri and just say screw it, let's go?
I am biased as a spectator here, but maybe. It's at that point you're basically saying I'm not winning the game unless I know that in your 9-card hand, which is 2 Geosculptor Yips and probably 7 removal spells, that you don't have it, that you forget to play anything.
Yeah. I mean, she does have Ysera now, so that's a little bit. She could attack with the Woe Cleaver and get the Ysera down. That's an option that she has available to her.
Still, with the Shield Slams gone, Blizzard Doomsayer is a lot more likely to stick. So, over-investing in this board, playing more than 1 threat at a time, I don't know if the game ever gets won that way.
Yeah. I mean, this Ysera feels like it kind of has to come down because that's her primary win condition, and the first one did not give her anything particularly useful.
Yes.
I mean, she does have another Grom in the deck, I believe? Or
nope.
does she? No, she doesn't.
She had, it was double Yip and double Ysera were the only things that were copied.
Alright, so this Ysera's going to come down, see if she's going to attack with the weapon or not. Decides not to, again, looking back to Blizzard, to Blizzard Doomsayer, and does get a Dream. That could be relevant.
It could be relevant, but I'm sure Illyri's original dream was don't get Doomsayer off my Geosculptor yet.
Well, at least it answers a Doomsayer, right? So if she does get Blizzard Doomsayers, that answers the Doomsayer piece of it. At least for 1 turn.
But now we have enough armor for Geosculptor Yip to start making big, bad threats, and that just could not be worse for the Warrior
on
player.
Red Knight's side, we need to specify because...
Yes, that's right. The Mage is going to play Geosculptor Yip, obviously, Steve.
Yes. This is UHL. This is where these types of things happen.
This is apparently normal from what I've learned by casting these matches until Nozdormu comes down. Oh, wait a minute. That means that Red Knight very clearly has to get exactly 1 more armor, right? So we can get Nozdormu rolls?
Right. I mean, that has to happen. So, looks like from that weapon swing, we have exhausted all of the minions that are left in Illyri's deck. And so we're down to... So that Army of the Dead plan is off the table. We do have another Scourgelord Garrosh. I believe she shuffled 1 in. And she has a Laughing Sister, and she has this other Geosculptor Yip, and that's pretty much it in terms of gas that she has left.
Yeah, and with the Dead Man's Hand being gone, she is no longer advantaged in the Fatigue race, which means when you're out of threats against a threat removal deck, and you're out of answers against the threats that you inadvertently gave them, that's not a great place to be.
Yeah, and they're actually even in terms of Fatigue now. They both have 12 cards left in their decks, and the good news is with the Laughing Sister, it can't get targeted for now. Blizzard Doomsayer deals with it, but okay, here comes Geosculptor Yip.
It looks like Red Knight is a case of the Yips, and here comes a Splinter Graft, which I think this is the most card this card has ever seen play.
This is Nozdormu's hotter younger brother, basically. I don't know. Not really.
I don't see
Maybe not
the
hotter.
resemblance.
Yeah. They're separated at birth. I don't even know what you do now as Illyri.
I
don't see a
know
way
what
out
I
of this
would
for
do,
her.
and it's save time
Yeah.
and go to the next game.
Yeah.
But if she wants to keep this game going, she needs to set up for a situation where she's not going to immediately die, and that means she has to remove Yip at all costs. That likely involves using this execute, which means it could be Scourge Lord Garrosh attack the 4/8 and use the execute. It doesn't feel great, but it does set up for the clear the following turn, using the weapon again and the hero power.
Yeah, because you need this 3/5 to just start going face. Like, you don't... You can't waste that face damage. You can't tank it in there because then anything kills it.
Okay, so it looks like the Blood Razor, we're going to draw a couple cards out of the deck and use that. That does stabilize a bit this turn, but it doesn't help the fatigue situation, and that's really the silent killer in this match. Illyri is now 2 cards ahead in fatigue, or 1.5 rather, and that is a pretty bad place to be when she's also so low on threats, because she's kind of losing to time more than anything.
Yeah, and we can see not only just the threat of, continued water elementals, but another Geosculptor Yip that will eventually generate armor to go along with it. You have a Dragon Caller Alana, which will be relevant at some point. I mean, even this Gastropod is going to be a pain in the butt.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah?
Do you know why the snail painted the letter S on the side of his race car?
Because it wanted to see the S car go.
You're not supposed to finish my dad joke,
sorry. I was so excited I knew the joke.
That was set up and knockdown. It was so simple. I feel more betrayed than Illyri does by Geosculptor Yip right now.
I'm like the neural network of knock jokes. Like,
it's okay. I admire that we were on the same wavelength here, even though there was thunder there and it was mildly appropriated.
Yeah. Well, I'm nothing if not appropriating. This Bring It On is, yeah. I mean, it keep. You're living, but what kind of living is this, really?
Well, I don't mind the Dream and Yip play. This is basically the last gasp to get something relevant, and I think it makes sense. I like the identification here of, if I'm going to do something here, this is the out. This is the chance.
Yeah.
And Deathwing is large.
That is a Deathwing. You still... I mean, Deathwing still dies to Blizzard Doomsayer. Meteor is not really on the table now because of that. Well, I guess looks like like Red Knight's gonna try.
And so this is interesting. Illyri's gonna get another roll with the Yip and is going to get to use Scourge Lord Garrosh to clear the Doomsayer and in fact clear the board entirely. Yeah. This might be that small opening that at least gives us a chance to see if this game could go in a different direction.
And it's almost guaranteed it's going to be another 10-drop. I mean, she's going to go up to 15 with the Scourge Lord Garrosh, or even the Woe Cleaver is fine.
Okay, so we're guaranteeing a 12-drop. That means it's an 8/8, right?
It stops at 10. Yip doesn't...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we know what comes out of 10, and 7/14's pretty good. And the Meteor just being used. And then the Doomsayer. I mean, he does have the Voodoo Doll to answer that. I mean, he could Dragon's Fury and then Voodoo Doll ping. That would clear this all off. Or even trade Blizzard and Voodoo Doll would do it too.
Yeah, Blizzard and Bump. Blizzard and Bump stops the Ultra Sword from doing anything and gets rid of the Yip, so that is good enough for now. Yeah. The Voodoo Doll can come down next turn. We're still in a really threat-light situation with Illyri, so this will work out for Red Knight just fine. I do think that was a small opening that was generated there that could have led to a really interesting board state if things went wrong for Red Knight, but Illyri's luck has been not superb so far.
This Warrior deck has just been letting her down in terms of the rolls more than anything else, but, I mean, he did have an opportunity there. I mean, the Dragon's Fury kind of needs to get used sooner rather than later anyway, because it's just going to become useless. He's starting to draw through his deck. He doesn't have that many spells left. So, it would have served a bunch of purposes. This Baron Geddon's pretty much going to be GG, I think.
It's just going to be a Reno that keeps happening.
Yeah.
Along with dealing a bunch of damage to the face. So, we're still in a good spot here. And remember that there is an Arcane Artificer that's still in the deck. So the Arcane Artificer, I would have actually liked to see the Dragon's Fury held there to build up armor for the Yip, but it was played to indicate this is a dead card, let me just get it out of my hand now while I have the free mana, which is totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, there's 5 cards left in Illyri's deck at this point, and I don't see a way for her to do 21 damage and continually clear water elementals. Like the Scourgelord Garrosh is 12. She can do 3 more with the Woe Cleaver. That's 15.
But remember the lifesteal.
No, but even without the lifesteal, right? Like even just assuming that this 21 damage is all she had to chew through, I don't see how she has 21 damage left in the deck.
I think it is mathematically non-existent.
Yeah,
because both weapons have been drawn. Yeah, the cards left in the deck are. Yeah, I don't think there's anything here. There's a gather your party is still left. I think there's a second brawl. I haven't kept as close track as I would have liked here, but I don't think there are any threat cards or even damage cards left in the deck.
Yeah, and she's behind in fatigue too, and I don't see. I mean, Red Knight's been drawing fairly aggressively, but I can't see him using this novice engineer, for example, unless he like desperately needs to create a water elemental. This Dragon Caller Elan is probably gonna finally put this to rest. I mean, a brawl will answer this, I suppose.
It has to brawl. Does the darkness fight?
The darkness, I do not believe fights. I think he just kind of sits there and is dark and brooding. He's kind of like the server guy from the IT crowd. He just kind of stays in the back and stays out of trouble. There's a reference for you.
Yes, I understood that reference.
Okay, good. We can continue the cast.
So we can also, there could be a Reckless Flurry here, and that would be just fine at clearing the board, but Illyri using the hero power first indicates she's not interested in using it.
Yeah.
Because that's otherwise just a missequence, and Brawl should be fine here at not dying right now, and it still does not solve the problem of dying soon.
Yeah, unfortunately keeps that water elemental around. I guess theoretically the way that she wins this from here with them close in fatigue is leveraging the armor. But I mean, the Baron Geddon's going to cancel that out. I'm really surprised to see Red Knight continuing to draw. I know it makes a water elemental, but it just seems like there's any other combination of cards at this point that he could be playing, and like literally the one way that he loses at this point is fatigue.
I think what I would have done there is just slam Big Daddy Splintergraft and get myself a 10/10 water elemental for 10.
Yeah.
Just because, well, first of all, we've already established I've been a member of the 10 damage club for a long time. And second of all, 1 threat at a time against a deck that solely has AoE left is how you survive the game.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with making the water elemental here. It's guaranteeing the never attack with the weapon again. But I agree that the primary thing that both players need to avoid is the fatigue trap.
Yeah.
Now, I do expect Red Knight to win that battle because he has threats and elementals and so on and so forth, but it's still worth not getting closer for the sake of just winning through the photo finish.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess you're at the point, if you're Red Knight, you just think, like, the question you're asking yourself at this point in a game is, how do I lose this match? And the way you lose is you look at her armor total and you look at the number of cards in your deck, and you say, as long as I can keep that armor total down and not fatigue out before her, then I'm fine. But I don't think that it's so important to build a second water elemental now with 1 already on the board, and then put down a 2/2 that knowing that she has another brawl left, as we see. But Lich King will help proceedings as well, it looks like.
That card good.
Yeah, that's a pretty good card to drop right after the second brawl comes down.
Yeah, and after the shield slams are gone. But it looks like the Splintergraft is being touched. I want it. I want to see a 10/10 Raven familiar.
I've literally never seen that card played ever.
I wonder what it looks like.
I don't know what the animation, I don't know what it sounds like. I have no idea. I think I own one. No, I think it's one of the 3 legendaries I don't have.
Yeah, we got a Warpath Execute turn here.
Yeah.
So, unless we go Arcane Artificer Splintergraft, which would be everything I've ever wanted, at least in terms of the context of this game, then we're not going to see it unless it also just comes down as an 8-mana 8/8, which is also totally fine here.
Yeah. And, you know, I do like O'Leary recognizing this may be her one of her last opportunities to swing with this weapon and get the 3 damage, so taking that while she has it. Stonehill Defender can get a number of disgusting things too.
And then, well, we're just making some armor. That's all we're doing here is making some armor and making a Stonehill Defender.
Yeah, and then we can play a Geosculptor Yip next turn. Can probably even Death Coil get an 8-drop. Snap pick on the Witchwood Grizzly. It seems like a perfectly cromulent pick there.
And then O'Leary, her only recourse is play the Death Knight that eliminates her ability to survive via health in the long game. But the hand here is Slam, Forge of Souls, Gather Your Party, Reckless Flurry, Army of the Dead, and Scourgelord Garrosh. That is 5 completely dead cards and Scourgelord Garrosh.
Which actively shortens her game. And I mean, the Slam does deal with the Artificer. I'm wondering how much longer O'Leary's gonna... I wonder if she's doing the math in her head now, or if she is gonna play the Scourgelord Garrosh and just try to chew through this taunt, and it's that making that Witchwood Grizzly bigger. She doesn't know that, obviously, caster vision, but oh, the Gluttonous Ooze.
The Gluttonous Ooze.
As the 30th card.
And that's gonna be it's gonna be 10 armor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow, that just lines up perfectly. Yeah,
I'm writing down a note here to ask after the match. Red Knight, why won't you let us see Splintergraft, you monster?
He may. I mean, O'Leary is still touching cards. We could see a 10-10 Geosculptor Yip. Or a 10-10 Emrys, even.
Yeah. So the question here is, which of the cards that does nothing is O'Leary going to play this turn?
Okay.
She found the
okay.
greatest impact an action can have in the game, and that is to end it.
Yes. Live to fight another day. So that is going to bring us finally to 1-1. That was a long... We've been doing this an hour, and we're only 2 matches through this best of 9.
I think it's time to tell the players to go ahead and play through for the rest.
Go. Just go and go. Yeah. So that is going to... Whoops, that is not going to do that. That is going to check off the mage for Red Knight. So we are tied up with 1-1. Interesting to see if O'Leary goes back to that warrior, try to get another win with that. I would imagine she probably wants to line that up against the Paladin, is probably going to be her best bet. Maybe against the Priest, just because of all the armor games. She knows that there's a Mind Blast Priest waiting for her. I don't know. I mean, Druid could be pretty much anything at this point. And the Rogue, I don't know how well that warrior deck lines up against either. I assume it lines up better against Odd Rogue than it does against Miracle.
Yeah, for sure it does, and I honestly think that that warrior is good against the rest of Red Knight's lineup. When you look at Odd Paladin, Malygos, Odd Rogue, and Mind Blast Priest, the 2 combo decks are based on finite amounts of damage that don't really play well with armor, especially not with double Ironhide, double Shield Block, and Bring It On. And the 2 aggro decks are very vulnerable to Warpath and the kind of point removal that Warrior has available to it. I do think that the Warrior is well situated against all 4 decks, just wasn't well situated against that one.
Against the Malygos, though, the one thing is that because she's playing Recruit, she doesn't have any weapon removal on that Warrior. So that's going to give... Assuming that Red Knight can keep up with all the threats out of the Warrior, that actually can let him burst for max damage. And that could be a problem. I mean, that's still 36, I think, that the Malygos Druid can do in 1 turn. With Malygos, Break Twig, Moonfire Swipe. With Faceless Manipulator.
Yes, you can go... It is exactly what you described. Mally, Swing, Faceless, Swipe, and double Moonfire.
Yeah, so, I mean, 36... I mean, we saw O'Leary Reckless Flurry for 17 in that last game, so I don't know if that's enough, but it could make it a little bit more difficult because normally the way that you beat it is by breaking the twig, but that's for the future. This match should go a little bit faster. So we have
I hope so. I have work tomorrow.
Yeah, this is I have sleep tonight, so
You might not.
I might not.
Wouldn't plan on it.
I might be going with you to work tomorrow at this rate. So we do have the Odd Paladin versus the Spell Hunter. Looks like pretty much what, everything but level up that you would want to start out in Red Knight's hand right now. See if he gets rid of any of this. And then tracking a secret and a flanking strike for O'Leary. It'll be interesting to see if she tries to ditch any of that to try to look for a Spellstone. Looks like she ditches just the flanking strike and gets another Wandering Monster back.
And I wonder if Red Knight might have been able to mulligan the Boisterous Bard. What you're really vulnerable to in this matchup, there are two things, right? There's Unleash the Hounds and Explosive Trap,
right.
And you kind of beat one but not the other with the Bard. I guess that makes sense as to why he kept it. But Explosive Trap is still just really, really rough here, even with the Bard. And I might have wanted to mulligan a little bit more aggressively to look for Fungal Mancer or level up.
Yeah. Be interesting to see. It looks like he's going to go for Lost to the Jungle here and coin out the Righteous Protector. So this should protect him against both Wandering Monster and Explosive Trap.
And pretty righteously, too.
Yeah, because if he attacks with one of the 1/1s into the Secret, if it's Explosive, it just takes the shield off the Righteous Protector. And if it's Wandering Monster... Oh, interesting. It's going to attack with the Righteous Protector. Okay, it does. I guess it's the same thing. Oh, jeez, the RNG.
O'Leary, what did you do before this match to piss off your RNG rolls? Did you get the person that fiddles with Reynad's knobs? That just they're like, we're going to set this all the way to full Reynad for O'Leary.
This is like Rod Johnston level luck right now. This is bad. So, second Wandering Monster coming out.
Do you attack here? I guess Boisterous Bard doesn't really save you if it's Explosive Trap. I think you have to proc it.
I mean, you can just reload and an Atris Veteran. I mean, how many 1/1s do you need on the board, especially without level up in hand?
Yeah, and Atris Veteran is both a threat in and of itself, and quite a decent board buff. I'm actually surprised the Taunt got traded in there. I didn't expect that.
No Candle Shot in play.
But is there any reason to ever trade it in?
Threaten a bigger... Well, you're not even threatening a bigger level up, because you're still a turn away from that. So, no, I don't... I mean, unless he's thinking that he values the Silverhand recruits better, maybe? I don't know.
I kind of see that. I guess at this point, you're only attacking either a 1/1 or a 1/1, so they're the same.
Yeah.
So, don't do your opponent's work for them.
I mean, I guess an animal... It would stop an Animal Companion in his tracks, though, I guess is the one. It would stop a Huffer. Oh, this Argent Squire Boisterous Bard is going to be some board, though. Ooh, boy.
And, yes, go face.
Yeah, so all face all the time, and O'Leary really does not have an answer.
Yep, there's no Explosive Trap here.
She can chip away at this board, but the Fungal Mancer and the Leroy are going to make really short work.
And if you're a Red Knight here, you probably realize this would be the Spellstone turn. There's probably not an Explosive Trap here if it's turn 5 and it hasn't been played, especially with mana floating. It's pretty reasonable to say, I don't think that there's something going on here that can stop me.
Yeah.
And so, this Fungal Mancer is no Fungal Mancer for O'Leary, because it's just going to completely clear the board and smash. I don't see any way she gets out of this, except maybe that Explosive Trap she does top decked.
What? So how do you feel about the trades on that last turn? Because my feeling is you just go face and let her make the trades. I mean, you do have to worry about some things. Okay, so we're gonna Eaglehorn Bow and then throw the Explosive Trap down. See if she,
and this is the dead giveaway attack, but you have to make it. But Big Daddy Void Ripper might help out a little bit here. It at least keeps 2 1/3s alive. It's actually not that great.
It's not going to do that much. He's going to do it anyway, because what else is he doing? And it also does push a little bit more damage. That's probably the reason to do it, but I mean, if it's not Explosive Trap, I mean, he could very well have gotten a read that she was bluffing too, which I mean, that you make that swing anyway, because even if it's not explosive, even if it's like Freezing Trap, you still make that swing just to sell it.
Yeah, and he's setting up very clearly here for Leroy Jenkins. Now, the Unleash the Hounds off the top is a powerful draw, but the life total disparity here is so dramatic. it's going to have to be, there's going to be a Vine Cleaver attack this next turn, even with the Unleash, because Illyria is going to be so dedicated on clearing the board. She has to. She can't close this game out fast enough.
Yeah, but she can.
And so,
yeah, she can do that. I mean, she can trade. I would have liked to see her. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter, but she could have, you know, traded the rest of them off and then deadly shotted to get a better chance on hitting the Divine Shield. Leave a pound or two up on board to be able to contest. But
there could have been a guarantee on getting rid of that and leaving up a couple of hounds. I find it interesting that she went face with the Eaglehorn bow, which I guess you have to preserve the light total.
Have to.
And then she traded in all the hounds. But even with To My Side here, the combination of Leroy and Vine Cleaver means that a 4/4 is guaranteed to lose to that Vine Cleaver, and that Leroy is guaranteed to go face. There was no roll from To My Side that would have guaranteed Illyria stays alive. In fact, there were no possibilities here. Unless there was some other kind of trap, this is a lock for Red Knight to finish this game very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's reasonable for her to make this play. Again, the I don't even think that the play last turn would have made a difference. I mean, it would have been a little bit better in terms of her board state, but it wouldn't have made a difference in terms of the end result. So,
she needed a better roll off of that Wandering Monster that wasn't Magma Rager.
Yeah.
She needed to have a Houndmaster Shaw or a Spellstone to at least provide some pressure and board control. And then she needed to not take a bunch of damage to the face, because that Vine Cleaver, if you can't race Vine Cleaver, it will beat you every time.
Yeah.
Odd Pally has an incredible amount of inevitability.
Yeah, and I mean, she just got a very heavy hand. She didn't draw... You know, drawing a Spellstone might have helped. Just getting anything but a Magma Rager basically off that Wandering Monster. Like, anything that could have traded twice, I think would have made a big difference. But yeah, so now Red Knight going up 2-1, clearing out that Paladin in addition to the Mage. So has the Mind Blast Priests, the Odd Rogue, and the Malygos Druid left. And it looks like we are going into game number 4. And we're going back to the Big Warrior for Illyria against the Odd Rogue for Red Knight. So this could be a better matchup for her than the Big Spell Mage.
I mean, this is the consistent question that's been asked in Hearthstone throughout the entirety of its existence. Pressure versus answers.
Yeah.
And it looks like Red Knight's Full Mulligan is not going to work out unless he top decks a 1-drop here. Void Ripper, SI, and Vile Spine, these are all very good cards, but none of them cost 1. They're all quite slow, and we're giving Illyria a chance to develop here. And she has a very defensive hand. There's an Ironhide, Dead Man's Hand, Shield Block, Shield Slam, and Regular Slam, along with the coin. Now, I am surprised to see turn 1 Ironhide here when it pairs so well with the Shield Slam. She's going to be able to maintain a good amount of that armor total, and it shouldn't matter too much, but I like pairing it with the removal spell as opposed to spending it early, because you're not usually choked on mana with this deck, at least in terms of your answers, just in terms of your threats.
And you're not choked on mana when you're using a Shield Slam specifically, because you're using 2/1 mana cards together.
So it's going to work out for her here. She's still going to be able to hero power and use the Shield Slam to take out this Hench Clan thug, and the Ironhide was able to build up early, so an extra hero power does work out here.
Looks like
unless the shield block comes down.
I mean, she could
and
shield
leaving
block
a henchman thug alive is a scary thing.
No, she could shield block coin Shield Slam if she wants to. Looks like that may be what she's gonna do. I don't know if she's planning on leaving this Hench Clan thug alive. I would imagine that a Shield Slam would be in the future, because that can get out of hand very, very quickly. Yeah, looks like that's the play. And that's fine too, because I mean, again, getting more answers, getting more armor for Red Knight to have to chew through. I mean, you do use the coin a little bit prematurely, but you're pretty much going to be reacting for the next couple turns anyway, and all of your answers are fairly cheap. So,
as she top decks the Lich King.
Well, she also does have a Geosculptor Gypt in hand too, but not really.
And this turn, you can take it a little bit slower. With the SI being the only threat here, you're not under a lot of pressure, especially at 38 life. I expect a slam hero power is what we're going to see.
Yeah, I don't think you need to commit a Warpath to this. Yeah, you just hero power and pass, and then the Woke Lever does come into hand, so that's good news for Illyria. Yeah, and just another naked SI and a hero power for Red Knight. Just, I mean, does draw the Dire Mole, but Dire Mole is not really doing a whole lot right now when he does need to get that weapon up again.
Oh gosh, this Blood Razor is a blowout.
Blood Razor is amazing. Yeah.
Yep.
That'll just clear the whole board right off and ward off the Fungal Mancer that she does not yet know is in her future. There comes Henchclan Thump number 2. Alongside the Dire Mole and an attack and re-equip the weapon, presumably. And that will get rid of the rest of Illyri's armor, but...
Yes, now the game can start. She's at 30, right?
Yeah,
that's how that works?
Yeah, there we go.
And this is, if she gets the second Blood Razor off the Forge of Souls, which I think is guaranteed, she can clear the Henchclan Thug and put the Dire Mole to 1, which is probably worth her time. Yeah. The other option here is to Warpath and attack in, and both seem like totally fine options, but I wouldn't mind going for the second Blood Razor here.
Yeah.
But still, clearing the board into the Fungalmancer turn, there's never a problem with that, and she takes no damage this way.
Yeah.
Just a good old triple Warpath, go face, and she stays at 30, which is really bad news for an Odd Rogue on turn 7, especially when she has 6 cards in hand. That's pretty brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good news for Red Knight at this point is he does have 2 Vilespine Slayers to deal with the first 2 threats that are going to come out. But really, a Void Ripper on an empty board, that is not really what... That was not the kind of play I was envisioning when I rated that card so high.
Yeah, as a 3-mana 3/3, it's fine, but it's not what you need on turn 7 as a rogue, and I would have considered, I think you were about to say this, play the Death Speaker first and get a 4/2 instead of a 2/4, because that 2/4 is just not going to do anything here. Yeah. It's not enough pressure when it's very clear that the Warrior has been stable for the entire game.
And you just saw one of the Warpaths go. So, I mean, that would be the other reason that you might want to keep it as 2/4 is Warpath, but you just saw Illyria use one of her 2 Warpaths. And the only other thing that punishes you really is like a Reckless Flurry. And it would have to, a Reckless Flurry at this point wouldn't clear the Void Ripper anyway. So you're kind of fine with that?
Yeah. And what I can see here is if the Blood Razor takes out the Void Ripper here, next turn it can be Woe Cleaver, ability goes off, kill the 2/3, and get something in charge.
Yeah.
Which is, with the Yip and Lich King in hand, it's going to be either a Ysera, a Rotface, or a Grom. Grom would be the best, Rotface would be the worst. Still a good situation.
Well, Rotface would be good too. I mean, Rotface would get you a second legendary.
Well, but not when you attack with the Woe Cleaver, not the turn of.
Oh,
I think that's the main issue here.
Yeah, true. I mean, and now, you know, we've seen how the kinds of legendaries that came out of the Rotface in the last game. So maybe it is the worst based on past experience. So
now, what's interesting here is that Illyri, she let the board up for a couple minutes to get buffed. Brawl has 1 out of 3 high roll, 1 out of 3. 2 of these are actually pretty low rolls if they survive. She can stabilize. It's not a huge deal if a 4, 6, or 5/3 survives, but it's still bigger than I think she was expecting to face this turn. And this is the opportunity that Red Knight has, where you could start whittling down her health while her mana is choked by threats, and her efficient answers have already been spent.
Yeah, I mean, she can Woe Cleaver into the 5/3 to kill it. And then if she gets a Grom, then she can just go into the 2/2. The Sarah and, you know, the Lich King is in her hand right now, so that wouldn't help her too much. She is going to choose to shield block, looks like.
Well, she's thinking about it. If you Woe Cleaver into the 5/3 and you don't get Grom specifically, you die immediately to Leroy Coldblood. Yeah. It's pretty dangerous, and that's always the threat here of, do they have Leroy Coldblood? How much burst damage can they assemble? Yeah. And the answer is quite a bit, especially with Deckhand Fungalmancer off the top. We're starting to see the efficient answers are not really making themselves known now. We have double Vilespine next turn, so a big taunt might not get there. Red Knight might turn this game around here. Illyri is at 11 life.
Yeah, and
he was on 30 on turn 7.
And you're looking back at that decision. Oh, the Death Knight will. It's not even going to answer this whole board though. It's going to answer most of it, but it's still going to leave that Void Ripper up, and it's going to.
That would be lethal. She would be dead on board. She would take 7 and 2 from the hero power and 2 from the fungal mancer. She'd be dead on board if she plays the hero power. Oh, except for the 5 armor.
Except for the 5
so
armor,
she would be at 5, exactly. Yes.
Right, but it's also going to remove her ability to heal for the rest of the game outside of the cards in her deck. And like that decision to play the Warpath out, I mean, if she was able to Warpath that other board, that would be the difference right now.
Yeah, I wonder if more aggressive use of the Blood Razor and more aggressive development of threats while keeping the weapons up might have allowed her to be in a more stable situation here, because right now her options are severely limited just by how clunky the top end of the deck is. The bottom end functioned extremely well at keeping her stable into the mid game, but look at how choked her hand is. We've got 4 8s, 2 6s, a 4, and a 2. It's a good poker hand. It is not a good Hearthstone hand.
I think you have to go with the Garrosh play, but she's running out of time for that because that animation takes a while.
You can queue up the action pretty quickly, and remember that as spectators we're a little bit behind.
That's true.
Yeah, she's going in, but she's dead to Leroy.
Yeah. This is the only way you live.
Oh,
I mean,
the attack didn't go through.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no.
But so 7, 9,
That's
11,
lethal,
13,
right?
Yeah, with the Vile Spline Cold Blood. Yeah, wow.
Oh, poor O'Leary.
Well, that's rough.
That feels so bad to lose to the interface.
Yeah.
And I don't blame her for taking forever on that turn, because that was incredibly difficult.
I mean, we were spending that whole turn just trying to figure out any way that she could do anything other than that. And it took us that long to come to that conclusion too. So, you know, I mean, that was a difficult turn. It just took her like, you know, maybe 2 seconds too long to come to that decision, unfortunately. Oh, whoops, that's not, actually, that's the wrong player. So there we go. So, yeah, it's disappointing that it came down to that. But, I mean, realistically, it was either that or Lich King. She saw that both those cards had been in the hand forever, if she's been tracking, so the Lich King really wasn't an option because it was going to get Vile Spined almost 100% of the time. So she did make the correct read that was the correct play, and pretty much the only play she had available to her that didn't leave her dead the next turn, but just didn't have enough time to get that attack off. I mean, it was a complicated turn because you both have to figure out that's what you're doing, make sure that you're okay with giving up your hero power, your armor up hero power for the rest of the game, which is not an easy decision to make facing down that amount of damage. And then make sure that you're attacking the right place and make sure you're not going to be dead anyway. So it's a lot of math, and, you know, math is hard, as I've already proven a couple times during this cast. So,
well, and it's interesting to note that the Vile Spines are usually such powerful anti-control cards, but they didn't end up mattering. Illyria was able to navigate playing around those so expertly, but the constant pressure that Otterogue is able to provide, the ability for Cold Blood to generate power out of nowhere, and I think the key turn was when the 2 minions were left alive for the Fungal Mancer. Fungal Mancer is such a powerful threat in both the body and the 4 damage immediately and generating over time. It was difficult to navigate how precisely that game was going to play out, but I think that you have to kill at least one of those minions.
Yeah, I mean, that's really just the only way that that deck can win is through minion pressure. And yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot that you can do there. Looks like we're just having...
the top deck of the deckhand there with the second Fungal Mancer was really, really good for Red Knight, and I think that really made a big difference. Now, Illyria is actually having some technical issues. She's restarting her client right now. It looks like her game froze right as she went to attack with the Death Knight, so we don't know if it was a rope or an in-game glitch. It's a shame that the game had to end that way, though I think with the Vile Spine Cold, but it would have been lethal either way.
Yeah.
If my math is correct, it would have been 13 damage, and I think Illyria was it would have been 1 off.
She was going up to 16, she would have been down to 14, and she'd given up her hero power. So I think the game was pretty much, stranger things have happened, but the game was more or less settled at that point anyway. And it's just unfortunate that, we wouldn't 100% know for sure, but, so we're just waiting for Illyria to get back into the game so we can proceed. So again, we are up 3-1 Red Knight over Illyria, and left with again not big priest. Rod's in the chat. I don't want to traumatize him.
He might not be anymore. He heard
heard,
Big Priest and he snap closed the client.
He's gone. He's out. He missed the Shutterwalk Shaman, thankfully, because that's his new Big Priest, apparently.
Well, but it looks like the Priest has come to play against Illyri's Even Warlock.
Yeah.
And this is a matchup where I think I'd probably rather be the Warlock, but it's pretty close. Even Warlock is generally good at setting up that early pressure, but you've played a lot more Priest than I have, Steve. When you're the Priest, how do you handle this matchup?
I accumulate burn, I wait for them to tap down to 15, and then I burn them in the face. That's generally my game plan.
I admire the game plan, even if that's a Priest game plan. You said burn them in the face.
Yes.
And 2 Mind Blasts is how much damage, Steve?
Well, that is 10 damage without Anduin, and that is 16 with Anduin.
Yes, but I was looking for the 10 damage.
Oh yes, you are a fan of the 10 damage plan. Yes. Oh, whoops.
Are you not?
Oh shoot, sorry.
Yep, I think the same thing just happened to me, where Illyri re-invited us to spectate and said unspectated.
Yes. So
we're coming back in.
We're getting you back in.
I promise it's Priest versus Warlock. Nothing happened.
Yes. There's a lot of tapping and a lot of healing face, and maybe the occasional like she'll burn you. So we are not able to see Illyri's hand yet. We will shortly. This is what you want as Red Knight, really, because you're not really. I mean, basically, what you want, other than that, is just some way to deal with a Mountain Giant. But other than that, you want burn because you're just that the Even Warlock is going to tap themselves down and hit themselves in the face a bunch. And once you just let them get into that range, you can just use the rest of your burn to finish the job.
And Illyri had the Doomsayer to deal with the Northshire Cleric, which is really relevant here because Priest only functions when it gets a really high volume of cards, and is not going to get the turn 3 Mountain Giant, but is still going to get the turn 4. So, turn 4 Mountain Giant, still pretty strong here. The question is, Shadow Word Death or no? It does get into that Psychic Scream a little bit faster, but a 4-mana 8-8, still a 4-mana 8-8.
Okay, so now we are in. Okay. We are in, and there is a Mountain Giant in hand. On Illyri's turn 4, so I mean, I would expect you probably you do it. I mean, I don't see a reason not to. I mean, the only thing, the punish is Twilight Acolyte usually. That's the way that, because generally this list doesn't run death. It usually relies on Twilight Acolyte to deal with big threats like that, and we see that there is not one in Red Knight's hand right now. He does have the second Mind Blast. He has 15 damage assembled. So it's going to be it's going to be a matter of how well Illyri pays attention to her life total, because normally you want to get yourself down to 15 to be able to play those Hooked Reavers, but that is actively dangerous against a Mind Blast Priest.
Yes. It's a very narrow race, and Handlock has always been really challenging to play due to how tightly you have to jump rope with your life total. But Illyri's in a good spot here because the Mountain Giant is unanswered, even though Red Knight is playing 2 Shadow Word Deaths. And there are a lot of options here. Now, I don't mind the second 6/6, the second threat, and upgrading the Spellstone. There was an option there to go Spellstone the 4/5 and go face, but it doesn't develop anymore. And if a Psychic Scream is coming, you want to put as much pressure on the board as possible. I don't mind this at all, and that's 14 damage showing. If Illyri wants to double trade into the 8/6, she can double trade into the 8/6, but I think that's not something that is going to be a problem here. There's still a lot of damage left in the hand. There's that Hooked Reaver that's up there, and she doesn't want to play the Spellstone yet because she really wants to play that 7/7 for 4 mana.
Yeah, and Red Knight really has no answer to this. I mean, he can Divine him. I think this started out as, I'm not sure what that Twilight Drake on the left started out as. I think it started out as a 4/9. So maybe it would have 1 health left, but that still leaves a 6/6 behind. Does bring him back up to 25 if he decides to do that.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're planning on Psychic Screaming here, you just want to clear your own board, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to double trade into the Mountain Giant and heal up for 2. And And pass, looks like, and there comes the other Mountain Giant into hand. So Illyri's free to tap and play that out if she wants to. Knowing this is going into the Psychic Scream turn, but I think if he only Psychic Screams 2 minions, you're probably okay with that. And you are, you need to... At some point, you kind of need to force the Psychic Scream anyway.
But so, okay, if you were the priest and you were facing down 1/6/6, what would you do in this turn, with your hand being what it is?
With 1, I probably would just heal my face, maybe play a Dustbreaker into it. I definitely would not Psychic Scream 1 minion, especially 1 minion that wasn't a Mountain Giant.
Yeah,
or
again,
attack minion, rather. Like that would be scary too, but I'm not... you need to play that second minion in order to force the Psychic Scream, if it's going to be there. And it also keeps...
But so, if
1/6/6
is there... If 1/6/6 is there, is that enough pressure over time, with the double Hellfire she has in hand, to stop the game from developing? Is that good enough? And I think... I don't know what the answer is.
I don't think so. Not with a Divine Hymn in hand, and not with a Holy Fire in hand. I don't think so. I think you can take that 6 damage.
That's fair. Well, she did force the Psychic Scream, and her hand is loaded with goodness.
Yeah.
There's so much good stuff here.
I kind of like Spellstone. Is that Spellstone a 5 or a 7?
That's a 7.
So Spellstone to File, lets her put down a 2-drop behind it and then keep pushing face. That seems
what
like
about
a pretty good plan.
Spellstone and then Shroom Brewer your Twilight Drake? That lets you develop a little bit more.
That doesn't actually clear and doesn't let you push for face damage, though.
If you Spellstone, that's 7 damage, right? Then you trade in with the Twilight Drake and then you heal it?
No, I mean, you do, but then you're not pushing for face damage. If you go Spellstone and Defile, you put 2 more damage on the Drake, and you can't heal it, but you're also pushing for face damage. And you're developing behind it. I mean, you're developing...
Then you leave a 4/3, right? And the 4/3 is going to die to the Dustbreaker here. There's a lot of ways for the priest to deal small amounts of damage, not a lot for them to deal large amounts of damage. Yeah. And Illyria looks like is splitting the difference between what we're doing. Spellstone Defile, so she gets the damage, and her minion survives. She gets the best of both worlds.
And you're not vulnerable to the Dustbreaker now. And it looks like... Is Red Knight eyeing that offensive Alex? Okay, looking at the 10 damage that's in his... Or the 15 damage is in his hand now, and having just seen the Spellstone come out, so Illyria needs to recognize that she needs to Shroom Brewer, and then she really needs to Hooked Reaver Shroom Brewer here is what she needs to do. Because she needs to get in the way of this Alex, because she doesn't seem to have a way to deal with it, and she needs to heal, because, you are not safe at 15 with Holy Fire and 2 Mind Blasts, and that... Oh no, she's going to put 2 Hooked Reavers in play instead, and Red Knight is just going to go over top with the Holy Fire and the 2 Mind Blasts.
And I don't know if I would normally play around Mind Blast, Holy Fire this early in the game, but boy, that is just an explosive end. Yeah. And whenever your opponent goes Alex, you got to look for whatever healing cards are in your hand and just play them immediately, because Alex Draw is an indicator of shenanigans afoot. I
mean, especially when you're threatening lethal like that. First of all, whenever you're playing against Mind Blast Priest, and maybe this is just the amount of Mind Blast Priest that I've played, but, I'm looking at 15 damage all the time. Like, if I see the number 15, I'm thinking that they can kill me, and I'm just trying to keep myself above that. But also, you saw 1 Shadow Visions, so one of the Mind Blasts came from a Shadow Visions. So you know that if she's Shadow Visioning against an Even Warlock, he's looking for burn no matter what. I would think that Holy Fire and double Mind Blast would be a possibility on 10 mana, but maybe that's just because I've played enough of the deck and know that that's how it wins, and that's what an Alex on that turn means, as opposed to dealing with the board. Because if you're saying, I don't care about your board, I'm just hitting you in the face and bringing you down to 15, that means that something you're not going to like is coming the next turn if you don't care about the board at that point. I mean, he was at 11, so... she was actually, was he at 11?
He was at 11, and so Illyria could put Red Knight to 2 with double Hellfire.
Double Hellfire, because that would be 6 and 4. That would be 1. It would put her to 1, actually. So she would be 1 off. So the fact that he's Alexing in that spot when she has to know that he's, he's that close to dying, it should put you on notice. But so Red Knight's last deck is this Malygos Druid, and this is a very, very difficult deck to pilot. It's a very strong deck, and it has a lot of different ways to win, but it also can just, if you're not playing it carefully, can fall on its face very easily. And it'll be interesting to see how much experience Red Knight has with this deck. This is something that kind of came up over the last maybe week or two in the tournament scene. I mean, it's been around a little bit longer than that, but more as like the quest Druid version, not the straight I'm just going to twig and Malygos and kill you version.
Yeah, it has the ability against any deck without weapon destruction, or at least without well-timed weapon destruction, to deal over 30 damage. And anytime you have decks in the meta like Shutterwalk that are trying to kill you and can survive at 30 easily but can't go above that, that's where you start to see these decks with these burst combos that also can be kind of disassembled, right? You can play Shutterwalk Shaman or Malygos Druid as partial combo, as just Druid cards, as I've heard it described, if you play Spreading Plague into Malfurion, that wins a lot of games.
Yeah. And
you also can set it for even just Malygos Double Moonfire by itself. Right?
Yeah.
That is 12 damage. That is enough against a lot of players. It would have been enough against Illyri last turn, and you don't need a combo for that. It's all from hand.
I mean, that's the same as, like, you know, Leroy Shatterstep Leroy. I mean, it's the same sort of thing.
Yes, except it bypasses taunts.
Yes, and you know, it doesn't give your opponent 4/1/1s, which are annoying. But I mean, you know, RDU put out a guide to this deck, and he has a whole section. How do you win if you don't draw? If they ooze Twig, and he says, well, TLDR, you're playing Druid. So
yes, basically that's what he said. Well, then look at how powerful Naturalizing in this matchup. Illyri's best possible draw involves her having 10 cards on turn 3 and then playing one thing.
Yeah.
Naturalize lines up so well here, but Illyri has correctly identified the plan. Go face.
Yeah.
That's the plan. And that's what you have to do here, in that the Even Warlock deck is a mid-range deck that can win in the mid-game, but really doesn't have the staying power for the late game, especially not against a deck with Branching Paths and Spreading Plagues and all this life gain and various taunt stuff. She's got to just get in there and go face.
Yeah, and she probably wants Gul'dan as early as humanly possible, just to be able to get that extra 3 damage a turn, rather than hitting herself in the face for 2. I mean, she has pretty much whatever she needs from her deck, for the most part, other than, like, the Mountain Giants at this point. And she's just going to want to get a Gul'dan down, like, ASAP. But this Malfurion's going to be hurdle number 1 in that plan. Those 2 1/5s are just going to be kind of they're really going to be like an annoying roadblock. That the Dread Infernal plus trades will clean this up, but will also protect Red Knight's face for the turn. It looks like that's exactly the plan.
And this Dread Infernal is really well positioned against these 1/5s that conspicuously become 1/4s against chunks of 4 damage.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, do we play around Swipe? Don't really know the answer, but with the upgraded hero power, I think you kind of have to trade in here. Even if the swipe happens, that damage has to keep going.
No,
but Illyri she's holding back. Yeah.
And here's the Lich King.
And here's Lich King.
Yeah.
So this looks like a trade-in Spreading Plague turn, and then we might see a hero power hit on the 2/2, or we could see a Naturalize on the 6/6. It does mill a card. Oh, that fully upgraded Spellstone will be good enough here.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep, so we're going to put 4 more 1/5s on the board. We're going to take out that 6/6, and then see if he uses that last mana, or if he's going to save it. He could coin out a hero power and take out that Plated Beetle.
And the point of that would be to free up cards in hand for the UI that's coming in 2 turns. Because as of right now, there are 6 cards in hand. Next turn would be coin. If he didn't draw an Arcane Tyrant, then UI would burn a card. Now, I think it's still worth playing, and that means I think it's still worth holding the coin. Because if nothing else, you just throw out a Moonfire, or you burn a card, and that's acceptable if you already have the Malygos in hand. The odds of drawing an Arcane Tyrant are reasonable.
Yeah.
Out of the top 17 cards, you just need one of them.
So he's going to have 18 next turn. He has 19 now. So he's going to draw 5 cards. He's going to go down to, he's going to have 5 draws out of 18. So, you got a decent chance. I don't want to try to do a hypergeometric distribution in my head because I can't, but
let's do a regular geometric distribution. There's a 50% chance either he gets it, or he doesn't.
Yeah.
That's how math works, right?
Yeah. That sounds good. Math is good.
And the issue with Dread Infernal here is it does clear the 2/2s. You can get rid of 2 of these, and you leave behind a 4/3 and a 6/6, which is fine. That's reasonable, but it's also pretty easily dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is merit to that in terms of... Well, it also is upgrading both Spellstones, which is relevant.
That matters a lot, actually.
Yeah, and you do set yourself up in case he has another Spreading Plague, but I don't think you're really super worried about the second one at this point. Here comes this Lich King, which is going to make UI a little bit more difficult, but I'm not sure Red Knight super cares.
Yeah, and the coin hero power makes a lot of sense here because that still frees up the UI next turn, still leaves the taunts here. You do get an extra card out of Lich King, which makes it more difficult to use UI, but in that case I say boo-hoo, you're fine. Yeah. And that Frostmourne is fantastic here. Yeah. Because Aleri has many things in her deck, but burst damage is not one of them. And that Frostmourne is going to start eating really big demons and spitting them back out in a few turns.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, if you really need to, you can UI and throw out the Moonfire. You're probably not going to need full burst damage in this matchup. You can probably afford to throw away one of those Moonfires just to keep from burning something else if you really need to.
Yep, because Fatigue's not really going to be a major issue against the Life Tap deck, and full combo isn't going to be as necessary with just the amount of constant pressure that that Red Knight has. Now, he also probably knows there's an Acidic Swamp Ooze or Gluttonous Ooze. Well, not a Gluttonous Ooze, but there's probably going to be some kind of weapon structure here, so it can't depend on the Twig combo. I wonder if he can use the Frostmourne to bait that out to set up for a later game push. And even if you don't get the Faceless, you can always go Malygos Twig and attack and double swipe instead of the Faceless. It's less damage, but still a lot of damage. Yeah. And Illyri's on 20. Just 20.
Yeah.
It's not that much.
She is going to build 2 taunts here, which is going to help.
Double swipe is really good here.
Well, it's going to help from her perspective. It's not going to help based on what Red Knight has in hand, because he can swipe both minions, then trade in the spider and hit face for 8.
Yeah, I think the play is you swipe the 6/5 and then you swipe face and trade in the 1/4, or you can naturalize here. Is that lethal? If we double Moonfire the 4/3. Double Moonfire the 4/3, that's 16 to the face, and then that's 1 off from lethal.
Yeah, we can't.
If you go double swipe the face, Moonfire the 4/3, Moonfire the face, I think that's lethal. That's 9 plus... Yeah, that's lethal this turn. Double swipe the face, Moonfire the 4/3, yeah.
I mean, even if he doesn't, I mean, it looks like he's just going to throw the Frostmourne out, and... you know, it looks like Illyri's going to need to use probably both Spellstones.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a double Spellstone turn, and Red Knight is starting to armor up. He could have attacked in there for an extra 3 damage, which I think I would have liked with the possibility of life gain here. Could he have?
Because he already attacked with the Frostmourne.
Well, he could have just hero powered before he attacked, right?
Well, that's true. He could have gotten 3 extra damage with that attack. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I guess you pretty much have to Spellstone both and then trade the 2/3 in, and at least that gets you up to 23.
Yeah. And then you just deal with the barrel of a UI and a Frostmourne.
Yeah. And you know, this is where you see the power of this deck, because we haven't seen a Twig, we haven't seen a Malygos, but Illyri is, I mean, she's surviving for now, but she's very clearly on the back foot.
And there's an Alexstrasza. Oof. I would Alexstrasza and go face every single time here.
I think you have to.
Because Alex deals 6, and then Frostmourne deals 5, which is 1 off from... How much, Steve?
That would be 10. There you go. There's your 10. And you just saw both Spellstones come down. I mean, you do have 2 Hooked Reavers, which will help get in the way.
And there's a Shroom Brewer as well in hand that 100% has to get played this turn. But even then, I don't know if Illyri has a way to come out of this alive. Yeah. And the Swamp Ooze is not going to release 10 damage, unfortunately. That's not how that works. If this is double Hooked Reaver, then we have ourselves a finalist.
Yeah, we'll see if she learned from the last time that she did that. Nope. And there we go. We have our championship finalist from the community conference. Red Knight assembles every single game. We start to see a strategy kind of come together. It's
burst from hand, except for that one game that took like half an hour.
Yeah, but yeah, just, who needs Malygos, who needs Twig? Just throw all the burn at face anyway. And
Wow.
there you go. And Red Knight is our first finalist for UHL Season 2. Whew. What a match. That was... I mean, I think that's one of those matches that's a lot closer than the score indicates. I mean, it is a 5-1 win for Red Knight, but I think that there were a couple of those games that were very down to the wire and came down really to like one or two plays at the end that if they were just a little bit different, or if one RNG roll went a little bit differently, that we could have very different outcomes, or, the games could have gone on quite a bit longer before they got resolved.
Yeah, well, Magma Rager, the Darkness, and Doomsayer all very clearly need to be in the finals with Red Knight. I think he's required to play those cards now because they did him such a solid in this match.
I'm pretty sure that's the rules. Yeah, I mean that's got to be in the rules, and if not, we'll have to make sure that they are, because that sounds like that should be a rule. I
think so. And we're going to give Red Knight and Illyria a couple minutes to get settled before we jump in a quick interview. We want to take this time to thank you all for watching. We really hope you enjoyed the show. There was a lot of really interesting play that happened here, some good decisions, and the lineup from Red Knight, I think it looked a little bit more, scattered on paper than it ended up playing out, because the strategy was very clear. If he couldn't do Burst from hand, he didn't want to play it, with the exception of that big Spell Mage, which I think is able to contain so well and build up that wall of armor and damage and just prevent anything from sticking to the board, that it worked out. But every other deck was just kind of about applying pressure out of nowhere, and it worked really, really well for him.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess when you don't have a ban and you're looking at a spread this wide, you kind of do need a bit of a mix of strategies in terms of like what you're going to bring, because you do need to be able to answer a bunch of different... It almost is like a Last Hero Standing to some extent, because you do need to be able to answer kind of a wide range, and you can kind of narrow that down a little bit based on the classes that are available. But at the end of the day, like, that you're going to have to deal with Paladin, and you're going to have to deal with a Warrior that's going to be on opposite ends of the spectrum. And, you're going to have to deal with whatever's in between from those other classes. And you do need to have... You don't need to get wins with everything, but you need to be able to get at least one win in with everything. So being able to answer a bunch of different strategies and counter them effectively was pretty key. And we had our doubts about the texture of the lineup, but at the end of the day, it worked out.
Yeah, and what do you say we get the players in this call here so we can talk to them about it?
Yes, so I will hang up on you, and then I will bring you back in.
Such rudeness. I accept.
I just have to I have to change our graphics a little bit before I do that, because I have to bring up the match over card. So I will do that, and I will talk to you in a second.
Okay.
All right, so we were going to get them out, and then we're going to bring everybody back in. And through the magic of technology, hopefully we will actually have people on the phone. Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Well played to both of you, and congratulations on being our first finalist, Red Knight. That was quite a match.
Yeah. The game, the only game that like, no, they're all like, I don't even know how to talk. Sorry, words.
I'm surprised you could form words after that match. To be honest.
Yeah, no. Specifically I don't know. The last game, I was just kind of like sitting there, like, man, this is all super awkward. I don't want all these cards right now. And then I was like, oh well, all right. I guess the math works. That Alex draws is really nice. Okay.
I have trouble playing Malygos Druid on a fresh night's sleep, let alone after a 2-hour match of all those games, including like a half-hour big spell mage versus big warrior battle royale. So
that was also a game that had me like, all right, well, we'll do things. We'll hope it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, Illyria, my first question is for you. I know you're an innkeeper. Are you sure you have friends at Blizzard? Because it sounds like someone turned on the Reynad switch on your Hearthstone. And,
honestly, though, like, I don't know. I do feel like last week, I don't know, there's been like the weeks where I've won in the league, I've definitely been like, man, RNGesus is with me. Like I really felt it. And today I was just like, ah, like I feel like, oh gosh, like I was playing, I don't play Shaman, as you can tell. I really can't believe I missed grabbing Shutterwalk after setting it up. And then like this other card played, I was like, did I actually misgrab a card? Like, oh my gosh. And then forgetting about Overload and,
Yeah.
that's a thing. I was like, oh, this card does this, and it went. And then I saw the mana lock, and I was like, oh gosh. Like, I really don't play Shaman a lot. But it is a fun deck, and the Warrior deck is really fun. I grabbed that from Frozen from his Twitter, and it just looked like a lot of fun. Because I knew I would kind of need a bit of the RNG roles to beat Red Knight, because Red Knight is a legit competitor, plays in tournaments. Like I knew I would have to kind of bring something a bit dicey in a way, but it was a lot of fun. But I do feel that it was like the Warlock games.
Oh.
I was just like, what is this? Like I can't quite like get enough, and yeah, it was
my
good.
lineup,
You played really well.
I appreciate it, and I mean, in fairness, like I was just happy you didn't play like Warlock early and then beat me with it, because the whole game plan was to corner Warlock. Like one thing, if you look across my lineup, the only bad matchup I have against Warlock amongst my decks are the Paladin, which I had really no choice to play. So, the game plan was beat Warlock. So like I didn't think. I played Alex Strauza for a reason, right? I mean, you already want to put yourself to 15. The only reason Alex is there is to make sure that I can just set up combos to kill you, like, easily enough. And it's really good against Warlock, because Warlock already sets themselves 15 for the Reavers. So, that was the game plan going into this best of 9. Somehow dodge Warlock wins until I can get, like, my good decks against Warlock, and then just kind of bully that the rest of the way.
Yeah, that was like, we were talking about the Priest versus Warlock matchup specifically, and just, how do you beat Warlock? Well, you wait until they get themselves down to 15, and then you burn them down, and that was, I mean, it took a little bit more work with waiting for the Spellstone, and that was some pretty good maneuvering on your part too, on waiting until after that 7 damage Spellstone had gone out, and then immediately responding with the Alex, leaving not really a good way to remove the Alex, and also having the Holy Fire, Mind Blast in hand pretty much from like turn 3 or 4. If I remember correctly.
Turn 2, because I was trying to get a Shadow Red Death off the Shadow Visions, didn't get it, and then I'm like, all right, well, we can just lock in on the damage plan and hope that we draw well, and that was more or less what happened. Didn't draw that great, so the game plan was, all right, survive, and then like turn 10 we should be able to kill her if she used her healing, and she did. So then I was like, all right, well, let's see if we get there.
Yeah, and I'm curious actually for both of you, but Redden, I'll start with you. How much did this, the BO9 is obviously different from the BO5 in the regular season, but how did this strategy line up with what you were looking at during the regular season? And Larry, some of these decks that you were looking at, it seemed like this was mostly in your comfort zone, except for good old Shutterwalk Shaman. And I'm curious to see from both of you, but we'll start with Red Knight, how your lineup changed here versus what you were playing throughout the regular matches.
When I played Druid this season, I hated Taunt Druid. I played Token Druid, and I played Spiteful Druid, I think. I want to say I played Spiteful Druid one week. And the reason I bring that up is because I was going into this week, and like the hotness right now is Big Druid, which I think is kind of fake news. It just has broken draws, so like, a 5th grader could pilot it. And I just am not a fan of that. Like, you end up with like 3 9-drops in your hand, and you're just like, well, this sucks. Like, I can't play Hearthstone now. If you like draw both of your like Dragon Hatchers and your Oakheart's like the bottom card in your deck, you're just like, all right, what do I do? Really, nothing. So, and then I also think Taunt Druid is kind of falling off. I don't think it's like well positioned. So I just wanted something that I knew could reliably beat Warlock and then not die to aggro, and that's where Malagos Druid came in, which is a deck I was very, very uncomfortable with. I went through like 3 or 4 different iterations before I just went with the stock list that you guys saw. I was, tinkering around with the list Firebat took up to Legend with the Oaken Summons, just because I like the package of Oaken Summons and just having more interaction against aggro, and then just like tempoing Malagos and just kind of like outvaluing your opponent a little bit more. But it just wasn't good enough against Warlock, so I was just like, all right, we'll try this and see how much I hate it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Larry, I know this was half the lineup looked like decks we'd seen from you before, and half of them definitely seemed a little bit off the beaten path. What was your thought process going in on the decks you were choosing?
I just stuck, honestly, with the decks that I was comfortable with Hunter and Paladin. I didn't even change them at all. And it was so weird when I played the Hunter game. I was just like, this is the worst feeling Hunter game I've ever had. And I love playing that deck. Like, it's the only one I even play on ladder. Like, when I do ever play. Like, I have a lot of fun with it. I was like, okay, if I'm going to go down, like, I'll play the deck I have the most fun with. And I was just sitting there like, oh, gosh, like, where's my hounds? Where's all these things that could help me? But then I did want to switch it up, especially with Shadowwalk, because I've terribly misplayed that before in the league, like really badly. So I wanted to at least redeem a bit of myself, and definitely misplaying Shadowwalk won't have done that. But I do prefer that deck list a lot, with Hagatha in there, and like it's a lot more fun to play. And then I really like the Warrior, the Frozen Warrior. I really liked it.
And those were the first two games, and they were absolutely fascinating to watch. To start with, in game one, I'm curious about decisions from both players, actually. But we'll start with you, Larry. The Keliseth Zola Keliseth play. Were you planning on saying, maybe I'm going to minion pressure down this priest because it makes all my minions 4 attack? Or were you looking for just a distraction from the long-term game plan?
I had played a couple of games on ladder with that deck. And I had that set up like in the beginning, and I was just like, well, that's a lot of value, especially early on. Like, if you can get that and have the rest of your minions just have that extra, especially if you have Acolyte get it and you're trying to draw specific cards. So it just seemed like, kind of like a bit of a push early on to at least get the most value of all the minions when they're played. I was really thinking behind it. Just like, oh, this is a fun little combo I can do.
Yeah, and you just need to get those minions down anyway. So if you have the first couple of turns to just do that without really getting punished for it, there's definitely not. I mean, sometimes you just play Zola just to get it out too. So there's nothing wrong with that at all. And so the when you threw out the emote, that was the Lightning Storm that you grabbed instead of the Shudderwalk that you wanted to play?
Yes, absolutely. I was like, oh, I actually set it up properly and grabbed the wrong card. I've never grabbed the wrong card before. I think I was just too busy looking at like the board instead of my hand. I don't know, but yeah.
There's a million things. You know, everyone thinks that Shudderwalk Shaman is you just play out cards and then you win, but there's a lot of things that are going on in that, or maybe I've just been talking to Rod too much. I don't know, but you know, I mean, you play it and you see how, you know, especially managing overload and managing your hand size, especially after you've played the Hagatha out. Trying to make sure that you keep enough room in your hand. And that's why we weren't sure if that was actually, playing the wrong card, or if you just felt like you needed one more turn to just get stuff out of your hand to make sure that the Shudderwalk went off. Yeah,
well, it did work out because I was conscious of that. I wanted to make sure the Shudderwalk could come back in. That was a misplay. Okay. It worked out in the end, though. But, yeah.
Yeah, and then Red Knight, your plan in that game, it was interesting. You got the Alex and the Anduin in hand very quickly, along with a couple burst cards, I believe double Mind Blast. But I'm curious about the sequencing there. There was definitely, it seemed like a more defensive game plan. It wasn't the slam Anduin into Alex. You definitely had the Holy Fire before the Alex. I'm curious about your thinking there and what your process was.
So the matchup is pretty abysmal before, and like one of the few ways you can actually steal a win is if you combo quickly, right? So my plan was to combo quickly, but then actually, believe it or not, the plan of I'm going to double buff my minions makes you have to like. I mean, I was like under a fair amount of pressure for most of the game, and I was just kind of like, I don't have anything that pressures her back, and then she hit Healing Rain. I was just. Yeah, like I didn't really have a coherent game plan like past turn 6. It just deteriorated. I didn't really know how to approach the matchup. This is not what I was expecting. I was thinking that I was expecting maybe something closer to even shaman. So, like, that's why I queued Priest. I figured it was going to have, like, probably a harder time getting a win, but, like, you know, decent chance of hitting an aggro deck if I play it first. And that's not how it played out. And to be honest with you, like, I'm struggling to remember details of that game because, like, basically I was just kind of clicking through stuff to see if I could find a way to win after turn 6 because, like, I felt like I had lost that game very early on.
And that was also approximately 18 hours ago. So
yeah, right. we had a warrior mage battle in between there that lasted 4 days. Yeah. So you know it's hard for me to remember everything.
So it was fun. I was trying to like. It was one of those where I was like, I don't trust myself to math. I'll just keep playing it out. Like I'll just keep going. And I couldn't. I knew I didn't have any minions left, and I was pretty sure I didn't have any weapons left. And the cards in my hand were like recruit minions and recruit weapons. I was like. No.
Yeah, that game was tough. That game was like a saga. We could talk about that one for a while too.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I was curious about the game plan, especially towards the end, because it seemed like, especially at the end, the only way you lose at that point was fatigue, and yet the novice engineer was coming out to make the extra water elemental, and it was, I mean, that might have just been fatigue from the player perspective as opposed to the deck, but from that game, because I mean we were tired after casting that, but
so I mean I can explain the novice engineer specifically anyway. I counted, like I was checking like the card numbers each time. I don't need to be ahead of fatigue that much. A good way to explain this is if you think about, like, say this was a mage mirror. A lot of people say mage mirrors boil down to fatigue, and in reality you just want to draw your cards faster to be able to get to your Jaina quicker, and then you just heal yourself up with water Ellies. I wasn't even falling behind in fatigue. I was still like one full card ahead.
Yeah, you were even.
After using the novice engineer. So it was just like more board pressure, and like, you know, I'm like, what random things? Maybe there's like a minion I haven't accounted for because my brain hurts, and you know, it's good to have the extra pressure anyway to end it before fatigue anyhow.
Yeah.
So it wasn't going to cost me anything to play it, so I did it.
So, but I don't think that was the real complaint that we had about that game. Tad, I'll let you go with the actual complaint.
Why didn't you let us see Splintergraph's animation for the first time ever, you monster?
I kept looking monster. Because I'm greedy and I wanted like a flashy minion to put it on.
A 10-10 water elemental with lifesteal is flashy. Just let us have
10-10 Arcane Artificer that never goes away and just gives you
I wanted a 10-10 Geosculptor Yip. What are you talking about? That's what I wanted.
But you flew too close to the sun, and then we all suffered in the end.
Gosh.
I mean, you should talk to warriors about playing decks that are mono removal, then. Come on, man.
Speaking of talking to warriors, hey, Larry.
Hi.
What was your game plan in that match? Because your deck, looking at it, you've got about 5 threats, you got a ton of defense, you got a bunch of recruit cards which actually make fatigue worse, and then you got 1 dead man's hand. What was your process there in how you were going to approach the match?
Oh, I didn't think about it that hard. I was like, this seems like a fun warrior deck. So let's play that. I was the rogue game. And it's so funny because I've organized for over 4 years, like specifically Hearthstone, and it's the first time I ever had a glitch. And it happened during a competitive match. And I was like, oh, this is what all those players over the years have felt. And it was like, I know my time was short, but I went to like attack the minion in the middle and it just like glitched out. And I was like, oh, I thought like I must not have been quick enough. But I should have, like, it just didn't move. I thought, oh, animations or something. But then afterwards, like, I couldn't emote and I was just stuck in that screen. I was like, he would have killed me by now. I'm sitting there, I'm like, guys, I think I glitched. Like, it's such a sad feeling. I've always felt for players in that situation, but it actually really sucks when you're in it. Not that I would have won that one. I think you're gonna win it, but to feel like your chance was ripped from you.
No, it felt pretty bad. Like, I think so. You were at 16. You get down to 2, right? Sorry, you lose 2 armor, so then you go to 14. Yeah, so I was left with a 7-1, and then a charger and dagger plus cold blood. Or not, no, just the cold blood. Just the cold blood and the dagger finishes it.
You would have been 1 off if you played the Tempo Vilespine or drew something good. But it would have been close, and it's unfortunate the opportunity got ripped away there. But it was an interesting game to watch in that, Larry, that early game went so well for you because the removal was so efficient, but then we looked at the late game, 4 8-drops, 2 6-drops, 2 4-drops, your hand just kind of filled up with all this really high-end stuff, and all of a sudden he was able to capitalize.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was one turn. There was one turn I think that we were looking at where you had where you used the Warpath and you had an opportunity to play Forge of Souls, get the other Blood Razor attack in, then use the Battle Cry from the second Blood Razor to clear without using the Warpath, which might have left that as an option to clear off that scary board that you had to Garrosh into, or at least, be able to clear it off the turn before to not leave the minions up for the Fungalmancer. And that might have been the difference in, in where that kind of started to go south, because not having that any sort of a full clear to be able to deal with that next board was started to get scary.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, on the other hand, you also did get to get a Darkness and a Magma Rager over the course.
Oh my god! I was like, I was just like, okay, yeah, this is how this is gonna go. But
yeah. Honestly,
I also
that
feel like
Doomsayer was just insane.
Yeah. The Doomsayer and the Darkness. Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know how many 2-drops there are in Hearthstone right now, but I know it's got to be a very large double-digit number, and to pull exactly a Doomsayer out of that is, it's very unlucky. And then in the same game that you pulled the Darkness out of however many, I don't even know how much the Darkness cost, 4 drops? There's got to be at least another, 50 or 60 or 70 4-drops in the game too, and to get those two, unequivocal low rolls out of the RNG was just, I mean, it happens. That's Hearthstone, unfortunately, sometimes, but yeah.
I actually ran the numbers while we were talking, and the odds of both those happening in the same game are very low.
Never tell me the odds.
Yeah. Okay. Does it add up to 10 somehow?
No, but 10 damage was a recurring theme throughout the match, so I appreciate both of you for indulging our Pyroblast addiction over here. And I think we're going to start to wrap up here, but congratulations to Red Knight players. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? Anyone you'd like to thank? Anything you want to shout out? We'll start with you, Larry.
I mean, obviously, shout out to Red Knight. You've played really well all season, and at least if I'm going to get taken out, it's by someone who is consistently a competitor in the scene. Like, that makes me feel good about it, because it's this kind of thing it's good for you to be a part of, and it's great to see someone that is trying, like, being successful with it. I have to give a shout out to Root and Avantis, who are the Innkeeper podcast co-hosts. They've been supporting me throughout the whole league, so big shout out to those guys. Language Hacker was actually helping me with my draft picks.
Oh, wow.
Once I reached the playoffs. So thank you so much for helping me with that, because I'm very lost when it comes to kind of what I should counter pick with things, and he was really sweet helping me with that. Who else? Well, Ferris Biscuit, of course, for putting this whole thing on. It's been a blast. And thank you guys for casting and everyone for watching. I'm going to slowly slide back into the world of organizing esports instead of competing now. So this was fun. It was good to switch it up.
So I guess let me ask you this, because I mean, you're usually on the other side of the bench, other than, what happens when the client glitches. But like, what is there anything that you would take from having done this that you think will help you when you go back to organize the next event, in terms of like having been on the other side of it now? Like,
I think it was really nice being a part of the player community. As an organizer, I tend to, as much as you're friends within the community, you need to kind of keep a separate distance in a sense, because if you're too involved with that side of things, like, if you have to make a judgment call against someone, like, you just don't want to give people the opportunity to ask certain questions or like accuse of certain things like favoritism. So even though I have close friends in the community, I've always kind of been a little on the outskirts of it because of that. So this time it was nice to be like really in the thick of it, like in our Discord server with all the different channels and talking about all the fun things, and to feel that part of it, I think, is really special and something that I definitely want to make sure in my future events that I am, incorporating and supporting as natural growth within it. So that was probably my favorite part.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Make sure you include a channel for pictures of doggos and puppers. I think that's probably the best part of the UHL Discord, and there's a lot of really good parts.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, Red Knight, anyone you wanna thank, or any words of intimidation for your opponents, whoever your opponent's going to be next week?
Oh, I got the tweet on that covered, man. I got that dealt with. But as far as the shout-outs, I have a couple. First and foremost, as always, to Dad Legend and Spiver, are the two individuals, Ben Reddington and him, who got me involved. So those guys, I'm eternally thankful. Shout out to Run, he said, patron, and also one of my subscribers. She helped me prep a couple different times, talk over matchups about what we're going to do. She's fantastic, and also newly minted Hearthstone player for the same team Innovation's on. I'm forgetting what it's called now, RBG, I think, esports. So, shout out to her and all the work she helped me with. And yeah, no, I think that's it. Really appreciate the opportunity. Obviously, Ferris, the league itself, for the opportunity to compete. Yeah, man. Slid in on a technicality. I'm planning to take the whole thing. Let's do it.
Well, good. Best of luck next week. And Nate and Mike are gonna have something waiting for them next week. So, had any final words you want to say to the folks before we let them go?
10 damage.
Okay, as long as it's in English and not in Spanish, because you threw me off at the beginning of the cast with that. So I'll just I'll wrap us up here. So remember, come back tomorrow, 1:30 Eastern time. Cinder and Brasky will be bringing you Mike Lowe versus Nate Wolf to see who will be facing Red Knight in the UHL finals. Until then, I am Wicked Good on behalf of Ridiculous Hat and the players. Good night, and be good to each other.
Good night, and it's Diaz Danyar to say 10 damage in Spanish.
Sure.